worshipped a pantheon of gods so powerful that their influence shaped the very foundation of one of history's greatest civilizations. From the sun's fiery rays to the silent passage of time, the 12 gods of ancient Egypt held dominion over all aspects of life and death. Today, we embark on a journey to unravel the mysteries and stories behind these deities that guided the hearts and minds of the ancient Egyptians. In the heart of the ancient Nile Valley, a civilization arose that would stand the test of time. Central to their beliefs was a pantheon of gods and goddesses, each embodying different aspects of existence. The ancient Egyptians didn't just worship these gods. They lived by their laws, shaped their society around their myths, and looked to them for guidance in both life and death. Today, we delve into the stories of these 12 gods, exploring their origins, powers, and the roles they played in the cosmic drama that governed the universe. Our journey begins with the primordial gods, those who existed before time itself. The first is Nun, the god of the primordial waters. In the beginning, there was nothing but chaos, an endless sea known as Nun. From these waters emerged Adam, the self-created god, who stood upon the primeval mound, symbolizing the first land. From Adam's own essence came the first divine pair, Shu, the god of air, and Tefnut, the goddess of moisture. This trinity, Nun, Adam, Shu, and Tefnut, represents the creation of order from chaos, the first breath of life, and the essential elements that sustain the world. As the story unfolds, Shu and Tefnut give birth to two more powerful deities, Geb, the god of the earth, and Nut, the goddess of the sky. Geb and Nut's love was so intense that they were locked in an eternal embrace, preventing the creation of life. Adam, seeing the need for balance, commanded Shu to separate them. With great strength, Shu lifted Nut high into the heavens, creating the sky, while Geb remained below as the earth. This act not only created the physical world, but also set the stage for the ongoing cycle of life and death. Nut became the arch of the sky, her body adorned with stars, while Geb lay beneath, the earth from which all life springs. At the heart of Egyptian mythology stands Ra, the sun god, and the most important of all deities. Ra is the creator of life, the one who sails across the sky in his solar bark, bringing light to the world each day. As the ruler of all gods, Ra's journey through the sky represents the daily cycle of life and death. During the day, he travels from east to west, providing warmth and light. But as night falls, Ra descends into the underworld, where he must confront the forces of chaos before rising again at dawn. The sun's daily journey symbolizes the eternal struggle between order and chaos, light and darkness, life and death. Among the most compelling stories in Egyptian mythology is the tale of Osiris, the god of the afterlife. Osiris was the beloved king of Egypt, ruling with his queen, Isis. But his brother Set, driven by envy, plotted his downfall. In a dramatic betrayal, Set killed Osiris, dismembering his body and scattering it across the land. Devastated, Isis embarked on a quest to find and reassemble her husband's body. With the help of her sister Nephthys and the wisdom of Thoth, the god of knowledge, Isis succeeded in restoring Osiris, who then became the lord of the underworld. Osiris's death and resurrection symbolize the cycle of life, death, and rebirth, a theme central to Egyptian belief. His son, Horus, avenged his father's death, battling Set and restoring order to the kingdom. Horus, the falcon-headed god, became the symbol of kingship and protection, embodying the divine power of the pharaohs. Alongside these major deities were others who played crucial roles in maintaining balance and order in the universe. Anubis, the jackal-headed god, was the protector of the dead and the guide of souls in the afterlife. He oversaw the embalming process and ensured that the dead were properly prepared for their journey to the underworld. Batet, the lioness-headed goddess, was a protector of home and family, embodying both the nurturing and fierce aspects of motherhood. Thoth, the ibis-headed god, was the divine scribe, the keeper of knowledge, and the mediator between gods and humans. His wisdom and understanding of the universe made him a key figure in maintaining the cosmic order. Egyptian mythology also tells of the constant battle between the forces of chaos and order. Set, the god of chaos, desert, and storms, represents the disruptive forces that threaten to overthrow the balance of the universe. His eternal conflict with Horus, the god of kingship and protection, is a reminder of the delicate balance that must be maintained. On the other side stands Ma'at, the goddess of truth, justice, and harmony. Ma'at's principles govern the actions of both gods and humans, ensuring that order prevails over chaos. Her feather is used in the weighing of the heart ceremony, determining the fate of souls in the afterlife. As we weave through the intricate stories of these 12 gods, a picture emerges of a complex and interconnected belief system. Each god and goddess holds a unique role, yet they all work together to maintain the delicate balance that governs the universe. The ancient Egyptians saw their gods not just as distant, powerful beings, but as integral parts of their daily lives. From the rising of the sun to the flooding of the Nile, from the birth of a child to the passing of a loved one, the gods were always present, guiding and protecting the people of Egypt. The legacy of these 12 gods lives on, not just in the stories and monuments they left behind, but in the very fabric of Egyptian culture. Their myths continue to inspire and fascinate, offering insights into a civilization that, despite the passage of millennia, remains one of the most intriguing and influential in human history. The gods of ancient Egypt represent the eternal quest for understanding the mysteries of life, death, and the universe, a quest that continues to captivate us to this day. Thank you for joining us on this journey into the heart of ancient Egyptian mythology. If you enjoyed this exploration, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more deep dives into the myths and legends that shaped our world. What other ancient civilizations would you like us to explore next? Let us know in the comments below. Join me as I dive deep into the ancient Egyptian afterlife beliefs and try to understand the weighing of the heart ceremony like never before. Did you know that ancient Egyptians believed in a journey through the underworld that would determine their eternal fate? This journey was filled with dangers, but at the heart of it all was the pivotal moment when the deceased's heart was weighed against the feather of Ma'at, the goddess of truth and justice. What did this mean for the soul's future, and how did it shape Egyptian culture? In this video, you'll explore the fascinating beliefs surrounding the afterlife in ancient Egypt, focusing specifically on the duat and the weighing of the heart ceremony. The Egyptians had a complex view of the afterlife, one that intricately connected their spiritual beliefs with everyday life. They believed that the way one lived their life on earth would directly influence their journey through the duat, a mystical realm of the dead. At the center of these beliefs was a ceremony that would either grant the deceased eternal life or condemn them to non-existence: the weighing of the heart. The challenge for ancient Egyptians didn't end with death. It was just beginning. The journey through the afterlife was filled with trials, and the fate of every soul rested on how well they had lived in accordance with Ma'at, the principle of truth, balance, and order. To the Egyptians, the afterlife was not a place you simply arrived at. It had to be earned. They believed that the soul would face several obstacles, including demonic creatures, perilous waters, and complex mazes within the duat. Each step of the journey required not just spiritual strength, but a pure heart. This is where their actions in life became crucial. Every lie, every misdeed could weigh their heart down when it was finally placed on the scales in front of the gods. The Egyptians understood life as a preparation for death. Tombs were meticulously constructed to house the body and provide for the Ka and Ba, aspects of the soul that would persist beyond death. They filled these tombs with objects and food to sustain the deceased in the afterlife. But no matter how well the tomb was stocked or how carefully the body was mummified, the true test lay ahead. Let's dive deeper into the duat, the underworld that every Egyptian soul had to traverse. This mystical realm was not just a simple path to the afterlife. It was a landscape of challenges. Here, gods, spirits, and even terrifying creatures like serpents and demons awaited the souls of the deceased. The Egyptians believed that this journey was treacherous, filled with pitfalls and hazards that could end one's soul if they weren't prepared. To protect themselves, the deceased would carry spells from the Book of the Dead, a collection of magical texts intended to guide and protect them. At the heart of this journey, however, was the weighing of the heart ceremony. This was the moment of ultimate judgment, where the heart of the deceased was weighed on the scales of justice by the god Anubis, who presided over the ceremony. The Egyptians believed that the heart contained the sum of a person's deeds, memories, and character. It was weighed against the feather of Ma'at, the goddess of truth and balance. If the heart was lighter or balanced with the feather, the individual would be granted passage into the afterlife to live forever in peace. But if the heart was heavier, weighed down by sin and dishonesty, a terrifying fate awaited them. The weighing of the heart was a dramatic moment. Anubis, with the scales in hand, would place the deceased's heart on one side and the feather of Ma'at on the other. It's important to understand that in Egyptian culture, the heart was seen as the seat of the soul and morality. Unlike other ancient civilizations that considered the brain as central, the Egyptians believed the heart contained a person's thoughts, emotions, and experiences. Standing nearby was the goddess Ammit, a fearsome creature with the head of a crocodile, the body of a lion, and the hindquarters of a hippopotamus. If the heart weighed heavier than the feather, it was immediately devoured by Ammit. This meant the soul was condemned to eternal destruction, essentially erased from existence. An idea more frightening than hell for the Egyptians, as they deeply believed in the continuation of life after death. For those whose hearts were light and balanced, the rewards were eternal. The soul would be led by the god Horus to Osiris, the ruler of the underworld, to live a peaceful afterlife in the field of reeds, an idealized version of life on earth. The Egyptians envisioned this realm as a place of abundance and tranquility, free from suffering. The ancient Egyptian beliefs about the afterlife were complex and profound. The weighing of the heart ceremony was a crucial moment, determining whether a soul would be granted eternal life or obliterated by Ammit. This ceremony, with its emphasis on moral integrity, reflected the values of Egyptian society and reinforced the idea that life and afterlife were inextricably linked. To them, death was not an end, but a passage to something greater, provided one lived in accordance with Ma'at. What are your thoughts on the weighing of the heart ceremony? Could you imagine living a life where every action you take is thought of as being weighed after death? Let me know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this dive into Egyptian mythology, don't forget to check out my other videos on this fascinating civilization. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe for more intriguing stories from the ancient world. Ancient Egypt, a land of wonder, mystery, and awe, was deeply rooted in rituals that connected them to their gods, the afterlife, and the cosmic order. These rituals were not just religious practices, but the lifeblood of their society. They ensured the balance of the universe, known as Ma'at, which they believed sustained both the living and the dead. Today, we uncover some of the most unbelievable ancient rituals of this mysterious civilization. One of the most iconic of these rituals was the opening of the mouth ceremony, a powerful funerary rite. It was believed that when someone passed from this world, they required the ability to eat, speak, and breathe in the afterlife. Through symbolic gestures, the priest, often a family member, would open the mouth of the deceased by touching it with a ceremonial tool. This allowed the soul to live on, ensuring a comfortable and eternal existence beyond the grave. But the afterlife wasn't guaranteed without the weighing of the heart ritual, perhaps one of the most crucial judgments in Egyptian belief. After death, the heart, which Egyptians believed held all of one's thoughts and deeds, was weighed against the feather of Ma'at, the goddess of truth. If the heart was heavy with sin, the soul would be devoured by the fearsome demon Ammit, and that person would cease to exist. However, a light heart meant purity, granting the deceased passage into the eternal fields of paradise. Rituals weren't reserved just for the afterlife, though. The ancient Egyptians practiced Heka, magic, in their daily lives. Whether it was for protection, healing, or even influencing events, magic played a central role. Through chants, spells, and offerings, they believed they could manipulate the natural and supernatural worlds to their benefit. One particularly grand event was the Sed Festival, held after a pharaoh had ruled for 30 years. This ritual was a combination of physical tests and sacred ceremonies that re-energized the king, symbolizing his continued strength and divine right to rule. The festival included a reenactment of his coronation and even a ceremonial race, demonstrating his vitality and connection to the gods. The beautiful Feast of the Valley was another event where the Egyptians connected with both their gods and their deceased ancestors. The people would sail from the bustling city of Thebes to the necropolis in the west, where they made offerings of food, drink, and prayers at the tombs of their loved ones. This ritual strengthened the bond between the living and the dead, ensuring that the deceased were remembered and cared for in the afterlife. Temples, too, were the center of daily temple rituals, conducted by priests to maintain the order of the universe. Every day, offerings of food, incense, and prayers were given to the gods, asking for their favor, protection, and guidance. These rituals weren't just for the gods. They maintained Egypt's prosperity and kept the forces of chaos at bay. Perhaps one of the most fascinating rituals was the Festival of Opet, a grand procession celebrating the renewal of the pharaoh's divine right to rule. The statue of Ammonius, the chief god of Thebes, would be carried from the Karnak temple to the Luxor temple, symbolizing the union between the king and the divine. The streets were filled with music, dancing, and offerings in what was one of the most joyous celebrations in ancient Egypt. And for those seeking a bountiful harvest, there was the Feast of Min, dedicated to the god of fertility and reproduction. The pharaoh or priest would perform symbolic rituals, such as plowing the earth, ensuring that Egypt would be blessed with abundant crops and renewed life. The meticulous process of mummification itself was an elaborate ritual that prepared the body for the journey to the afterlife. Priests would perform sacred rites to cleanse, embalm, and wrap the body in fine linen, placing protective amulets between the layers to safeguard the soul. Mummification was not just about preserving the body. It was a magical process that ensured the deceased could navigate the afterlife's perils. These rituals, whether daily, funerary, or festival, reflect the Egyptians' deep belief in maintaining harmony with their gods and preparing for a seamless transition into the afterlife. From the grand New Year festival of Weepa which celebrated the Nile's inundation and the renewal of the land, to the intimate funerary banquets, where families dined with their dead, Egypt's culture was steeped in symbolism and reverence for the divine. To this day, these ancient rituals continue to fascinate and mystify us, offering a glimpse into the extraordinary spiritual world of one of history's greatest civilizations. The grandeur and magic of Egypt live on, not only in its monuments, but in its rituals that have left an indelible mark on the annals of history. If you've enjoyed this dive into ancient Egypt's mysterious rituals, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment below with your thoughts on which ritual fascinated you the most. Let's keep the mystery alive. Join me as I dive into the mysteries of ancient Egyptian magic and try to unlock its most powerful spells and sorcery. From the mystical rites that guided the journey to the afterlife to the incantations that summoned the protection of powerful deities, ancient Egyptian magic holds secrets that continue to fascinate and intrigue us today. In this video, you'll discover the fascinating realm of ancient Egyptian magic, including the spells, sorcery, and mysticism that shaped their beliefs and practices. Despite its significance, much of Egyptian magic remains a mystery to modern audiences. Many of us are familiar with the iconic pyramids, mummies, and hieroglyphics, but the underlying magical practices that govern their daily lives are often overlooked. To truly understand ancient Egyptian culture, we need to delve deeper into their mystical worldview. Egyptian magic was a complex system that wove together mythology, astrology, and spiritual practices to create a rich tapestry of rituals and spells. By exploring this mystical realm, we can gain a deeper appreciation for the ingenuity and creativity of the ancient Egyptians. But how can we unlock these secrets and understand their true essence? One way is to examine the various forms of magical texts, such as the pyramid texts, coffin texts, and the Book of the Dead. These texts weren't just religious manuscripts. They were powerful magical tools. For instance, the pyramid text contains some of the oldest known religious spells, which were etched into the walls of royal tombs to ensure the pharaoh's protection in the afterlife. Spells from the pyramid texts were meant to guide the soul through the underworld, warding off evil forces and ensuring a peaceful transition into eternity. Another key source of ancient Egyptian magic is the Book of the Dead, a collection of spells and prayers written on papyrus and buried with the deceased to help them navigate the afterlife. Within this book, you'll find spells for protection, guidance, and empowerment, such as the famous weighing of the heart spell, where the deceased's heart is weighed against the feather of truth to determine their fate in the afterlife. If the heart was lighter than the feather, the soul could enter paradise. If heavier, it would be devoured by the monstrous goddess Ammit. Let's not forget the priests and priestesses who played a vital role in performing these magical rituals. Serving as intermediaries between the human and divine realms, these individuals were skilled in the arts of magic and astrology. They used specialized tools like wands, amulets, and statues to channel divine power. The hieroglyphic carvings on these tools were believed to hold magical power, granting the wearer or the person they were used on protection, health, and prosperity. At the heart of Egyptian magic lay a deep reverence for the gods and goddesses, who were believed to possess supernatural powers. Egyptian magic wasn't just about casting spells. It was about invoking the favor of the gods to manipulate the forces of nature and reality itself. The Egyptians developed an elaborate pantheon of deities, each with their own distinct personality and sphere of influence. For instance, Isis, one of the most beloved and powerful goddesses, was associated with magic, healing, and protection. She was often invoked in spells meant to safeguard loved ones or restore health. Isis herself was a master of spells, once using magic to learn the secret name of the sun god Are, which gave her immense power. Another example is Anubis, the god of mummification and the afterlife, who was often called upon in funerary rites to guide the souls of the dead. His presence was key to ensuring a smooth passage into the afterlife, with spells and prayers invoking his guidance to protect the deceased from the dangers of the underworld. Rituals, too, were central to Egyptian magic. These rituals often involved a combination of spoken spells, symbolic gestures, and offerings to the gods. For example, during the festival of Weepa the Egyptian New Year, priests performed elaborate rituals to renew the powers of the pharaoh and ensure prosperity for the kingdom. Ritual tools like ceremonial masks, sistrums, musical instruments used in religious ceremonies, and incense burners were used to call forth the presence of deities and spirits, creating a sacred space for the magical rites to unfold. One particularly powerful and well-known magical ritual was the opening the mouth ceremony, which was performed during the mummification process. This ritual was believed to restore the senses of the dead so they could eat, drink, and speak in the afterlife. The process involved intricate steps, including the use of sacred tools like the adze, a small instrument shaped like a crescent, to symbolically open the mouth and eyes of the deceased. The opening the mouth ritual was more than just a spiritual rite. It was a profound expression of the Egyptians' belief in the continuity of life after death. They understood that death was not the end, but merely a transition to a different existence, and the magic they performed was essential to ensure this transition went smoothly. It also demonstrated their belief in the interconnectedness of the physical and spiritual worlds. Every action taken in this world had ripples in the afterlife. Another fascinating aspect of Egyptian magic is the use of amulets. The ankh, for example, symbolized life and was often placed on mummies to ensure a continuation of life in the afterlife. Amulets of scarab beetles were also used for protection, as they were believed to hold transformative powers. Just as the beetle could transform waste into nourishment, these amulets were thought to bring transformation and regeneration to the soul. The Egyptians also had spells for everyday needs, such as protection against illness, good harvests, or success in personal ventures. One such example is the Sipi of Horus, a type of protective charm that depicted the child god Horus standing on crocodiles while holding dangerous animals. It was meant to protect against bites from venomous creatures and was often placed in homes or temples as a form of spiritual protection. Our journey into the mysteries of ancient Egyptian magic has revealed a complex, multifaceted system that wove together mythology, astrology, and spiritual practices. Egyptian magic wasn't just about casting spells. It was an entire worldview that connected the physical and spiritual worlds. From the divine power of gods like Isis and Anubis to the intricate spells contained in texts like the Book of the Dead, ancient Egyptian magic was central to how they understood life, death, and the cosmos. By exploring the magical texts, rituals, and deities of ancient Egypt, we can gain a deeper appreciation for their ingenuity, creativity, and profound reverence for the mysteries of life and death. Even today, their magical practices continue to intrigue enthusiasts and scholars alike, leaving us to wonder what other secrets might still be hidden in the sands of time. If you enjoyed this exploration of ancient magic, don't forget to like, subscribe, and check out my other videos on mystical traditions from around the world. Ancient Egypt, a land of wonder, mystery, and awe, was deeply rooted in rituals that connected them to their gods, the afterlife, and the cosmic order. These rituals were not just religious practices, but the lifeblood of their society. They ensured the balance of the universe, known as Ma'at, which they believed sustained both the living and the dead. Today, we uncover some of the most unbelievable ancient rituals of this mysterious civilization. One of the most iconic of these rituals was the opening of the mouth ceremony, a powerful funerary rite. It was believed that when someone passed from this world, they required the ability to eat, speak, and breathe in the afterlife. Through symbolic gestures, the priest, often a family member, would open the mouth of the deceased by touching it with a ceremonial tool. This allowed the soul to live on, ensuring a comfortable and eternal existence beyond the grave. But the afterlife wasn't guaranteed without the weighing of the heart ritual, perhaps one of the most crucial judgments in Egyptian belief. After death, the heart, which Egyptians believed held all of one's thoughts and deeds, was weighed against the feather of Ma'at, the goddess of truth. If the heart was heavy with sin, the soul would be devoured by the fearsome demon Ammit, and that person would cease to exist. However, a light heart meant purity, granting the deceased passage into the eternal fields of paradise. Rituals weren't reserved just for the afterlife, though. The ancient Egyptians practiced Heka, magic, in their daily lives. Whether it was for protection, healing, or even influencing events, magic played a central role. Through chants, spells, and offerings, they believed they could manipulate the natural and supernatural worlds to their benefit. One particularly grand event was the Sed Festival, held after a pharaoh had ruled for 30 years. This ritual was a combination of physical tests and sacred ceremonies that re-energized the king, symbolizing his continued strength and divine right to rule. The festival included a reenactment of his coronation and even a ceremonial race, demonstrating his vitality and connection to the gods. The beautiful Feast of the Valley was another event where the Egyptians connected with both their gods and their deceased ancestors. The people would sail from the bustling city of Thebes to the necropolis in the west, where they made offerings of food, drink, and prayers at the tombs of their loved ones. This ritual strengthened the bond between the living and the dead, ensuring that the deceased were remembered and cared for in the afterlife. Temples, too, were the center of daily temple rituals, conducted by priests to maintain the order of the universe. Every day, offerings of food, incense, and prayers were given to the gods, asking for their favor, protection, and guidance. These rituals weren't just for the gods. They maintained Egypt's prosperity and kept the forces of chaos at bay. Perhaps one of the most fascinating rituals was the Festival of Opet, a grand procession celebrating the renewal of the pharaoh's divine right to rule. The statue of Ammonius, the chief god of Thebes, would be carried from the Karnak temple to the Luxor temple, symbolizing the union between the king and the divine. The streets were filled with music, dancing, and offerings in what was one of the most joyous celebrations in ancient Egypt. And for those seeking a bountiful harvest, there was the Feast of Min, dedicated to the god of fertility and reproduction. The pharaoh or priest would perform symbolic rituals, such as plowing the earth, ensuring that Egypt would be blessed with abundant crops and renewed life. The meticulous process of mummification itself was an elaborate ritual that prepared the body for the journey to the afterlife. Priests would perform sacred rites to cleanse, embalm, and wrap the body in fine linen, placing protective amulets between the layers to safeguard the soul. Mummification was not just about preserving the body. It was a magical process that ensured the deceased could navigate the afterlife's perils. These rituals, whether daily, funerary, or festival, reflect the Egyptians' deep belief in maintaining harmony with their gods and preparing for a seamless transition into the afterlife. From the grand New Year festival of Weepa, which celebrated the Nile's inundation and the renewal of the land, to the intimate funerary banquets, where families dined with their dead, Egypt's culture was steeped in symbolism and reverence for the divine. To this day, these ancient rituals continue to fascinate and mystify us, offering a glimpse into the extraordinary spiritual world of one of history's greatest civilizations. The grandeur and magic of Egypt live on, not only in its monuments, but in its rituals that have left an indelible mark on the annals of history. If you've enjoyed this dive into ancient Egypt's mysterious rituals, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment below with your thoughts on which ritual fascinated you the most. Let's keep the mystery alive. Join me as I dive into the mysteries of ancient Egyptian magic and try to unlock its most powerful spells and sorcery. From the mystical rites that guided the journey to the afterlife to the incantations that summoned the protection of powerful deities, ancient Egyptian magic holds secrets that continue to fascinate and intrigue us today. In this video, you'll discover the fascinating realm of ancient Egyptian magic, including the spells, sorcery, and mysticism that shaped their beliefs and practices. Despite its significance, much of Egyptian magic remains a mystery to modern audiences. Many of us are familiar with the iconic pyramids, mummies, and hieroglyphics, but the underlying magical practices that govern their daily lives are often overlooked. To truly understand ancient Egyptian culture, we need to delve deeper into their mystical worldview. Egyptian magic was a complex system that wove together mythology, astrology, and spiritual practices to create a rich tapestry of rituals and spells. By exploring this mystical realm, we can gain a deeper appreciation for the ingenuity and creativity of the ancient Egyptians. But how can we unlock these secrets and understand their true essence? One way is to examine the various forms of magical texts, such as the pyramid texts, coffin texts, and the Book of the Dead. These texts weren't just religious manuscripts. They were powerful magical tools. For instance, the pyramid texts contain some of the oldest known religious spells, which were etched into the walls of royal tombs to ensure the pharaoh's protection in the afterlife. Spells from the pyramid texts were meant to guide the soul through the underworld, warding off evil forces and ensuring a peaceful transition into eternity. Another key source of ancient Egyptian magic is the Book of the Dead, a collection of spells and prayers written on papyrus and buried with the deceased to help them navigate the afterlife. Within this book, you'll find spells for protection, guidance, and empowerment, such as the famous weighing of the heart spell, where the deceased's heart is weighed against the feather of truth to determine their fate in the afterlife. If the heart was lighter than the feather, the soul could enter paradise. If heavier, it would be devoured by the monstrous goddess Ammit. Let's not forget the priests and priestesses who played a vital role in performing these magical rituals. Serving as intermediaries between the human and divine realms, these individuals were skilled in the arts of magic and astrology. They used specialized tools like wands, amulets, and statues to channel divine power. The hieroglyphic carvings on these tools were believed to hold magical power, granting the wearer or the person they were used on protection, health, and prosperity. At the heart of Egyptian magic lay a deep reverence for the gods and goddesses, who were believed to possess supernatural powers. Egyptian magic wasn't just about casting spells. It was about invoking the favor of the gods to manipulate the forces of nature and reality itself. The Egyptians developed an elaborate pantheon of deities, each with their own distinct personality and sphere of influence. For instance, Isis, one of the most beloved and powerful goddesses, was associated with magic, healing, and protection. She was often invoked in spells meant to safeguard loved ones or restore health. Isis herself was a master of spells, once using magic to learn the secret name of the sun god Ra, which gave her immense power. Another example is Anubis, the god of mummification and the afterlife, who was often called upon in funerary rites to guide the souls of the dead. His presence was key to ensuring a smooth passage into the afterlife, with spells and prayers invoking his guidance to protect the deceased from the dangers of the underworld. Rituals, too, were central to Egyptian magic. These rituals often involved a combination of spoken spells, symbolic gestures, and offerings to the gods. For example, during the festival of Weepa, the Egyptian New Year, priests performed elaborate rituals to renew the powers of the pharaoh and ensure prosperity for the kingdom. Ritual tools like ceremonial masks, sistrums, musical instruments used in religious ceremonies, and incense burners were used to call forth the presence of deities and spirits, creating a sacred space for the magical rites to unfold. One particularly powerful and well-known magical ritual was the opening the mouth ceremony, which was performed during the mummification process. This ritual was believed to restore the senses of the dead so they could eat, drink, and speak in the afterlife. The process involved intricate steps, including the use of sacred tools like the adze, a small instrument shaped like a crescent, to symbolically open the mouth and eyes of the deceased. The opening the mouth ritual was more than just a spiritual rite. It was a profound expression of the Egyptians' belief in the continuity of life after death. They understood that death was not the end, but merely a transition to a different existence, and the magic they performed was essential to ensure this transition went smoothly. It also demonstrated their belief in the interconnectedness of the physical and spiritual worlds. Every action taken in this world had ripples in the afterlife. Another fascinating aspect of Egyptian magic is the use of amulets. The ankh, for example, symbolized life and was often placed on mummies to ensure a continuation of life in the afterlife. Amulets of scarab beetles were also used for protection, as they were believed to hold transformative powers. Just as the beetle could transform waste into nourishment, these amulets were thought to bring transformation and regeneration to the soul. The Egyptians also had spells for everyday needs, such as protection against illness, good harvests, or success in personal ventures. One such example is the Sipi of Horus, a type of protective charm that depicted the child god Horus standing on crocodiles while holding dangerous animals. It was meant to protect against bites from venomous creatures and was often placed in homes or temples as a form of spiritual protection. Our journey into the mysteries of ancient Egyptian magic has revealed a complex, multifaceted system that wove together mythology, astrology, and spiritual practices. Egyptian magic wasn't just about casting spells. It was an entire worldview that connected the physical and spiritual worlds. From the divine power of gods like Isis and Anubis to the intricate spells contained in texts like the Book of the Dead, ancient Egyptian magic was central to how they understood life, death, and the cosmos. By exploring the magical texts, rituals, and deities of ancient Egypt, we can gain a deeper appreciation for their ingenuity, creativity, and profound mysteries of life and death. Even today, their magical practices continue to intrigue enthusiasts and scholars alike, leaving us to wonder what other secrets might still be hidden in the sands of time. If you enjoyed this exploration of ancient magic, don't forget to like, subscribe, and check out my other videos on mystical traditions from around the world. Did you know Anubis, the iconic Egyptian god of death, wasn't always the ruler of the underworld? Even though we often think of him as the sole guide for souls into the afterlife, his role was far more complicated. In fact, Anubis faced a betrayal that completely changed his destiny, a betrayal that came from the very gods he had loyally served. Today, we'll unravel the untold story of Anubis, the god who was betrayed and lost his throne in the underworld. Anubis, with his jackal head and mysterious presence, is one of the most recognizable gods in Egyptian mythology. To the ancient Egyptians, he represented death, mummification, and the protection of souls as they journeyed into the afterlife. His role was sacred. He was the god who ensured the dead were prepared for their final judgment. In many ways, Anubis was a protector, one who guided the deceased through the most dangerous part of their journey, the afterlife. But there's more to his story than just embalming and guiding souls. He was part of a power struggle, one that would forever change his place among the gods. Anubis's role in the underworld wasn't always stable. While he was initially the god of death, things shifted after the rise of another god, Osiris. As the legend goes, Osiris, the god of fertility and rebirth, was brutally murdered by his own brother, Set, the god of chaos. After Set dismembered Osiris's body and scattered the pieces across Egypt, it was Anubis who helped gather the remains and preserve them, allowing Osiris to be resurrected. It was an act of pure loyalty. But this would become the turning point for Anubis. The gods, particularly Ra, the sun god, recognized Osiris's resurrection and decided that Osiris should be given dominion over the afterlife. This decision left Anubis in a secondary role, demoted from the ruler of the underworld to the god of mummification and embalming. Anubis, who had loyally served the dead for centuries, was suddenly cast aside. It wasn't just a demotion. It was a betrayal from Ra and Osiris, the very gods Anubis had assisted. So, what exactly led to this betrayal? Let's take a step back and explore the mythological history that shaped this conflict. Long before Osiris came into power, Anubis had reigned as the primary god of death. His primary role was to ensure that the souls of the dead were protected and prepared for their journey into the underworld. He was the one who developed the process of mummification, which became a cornerstone of Egyptian funerary practices. The Egyptians believed that through mummification, the dead could be preserved for their resurrection and judgment in the afterlife. Anubis took great care in preparing the dead, ensuring they were ready to meet their fate. The turning point came when Osiris entered the scene. Osiris wasn't originally a god associated with death. He was a god of fertility, agriculture, and the natural cycles of life. But when Set, driven by jealousy, murdered him and scattered his body, Osiris's fate changed forever. Anubis, along with Isis and Nephthys, worked tirelessly to recover the pieces of Osiris's body. Anubis used his skills of embalming to preserve Osiris, helping him become the first being to be resurrected. Ra, seeing the miraculous resurrection of Osiris, believed that Osiris should rule the underworld, for he had died and returned. It seemed only fitting that a god who had experienced death should now preside over it. But in making this decision, Ra overlooked the dedication and loyalty that Anubis had shown. Anubis, who had been the god of the dead for generations, was now stripped of his primary role. It was a deep betrayal, one that would forever change Anubis's place in Egyptian mythology. Despite this, Anubis remained loyal. He did not rebel against Osiris or Ra. Instead, he accepted his new role as the god of embalming, ensuring that the dead would continue to be properly prepared for their journey into the afterlife. He became the protector of tombs and was often depicted standing guard over the mummified bodies of the dead. He even performed the weighing of the heart ceremony, where the hearts of the deceased were measured against the feather of Maat, the goddess of truth and justice. Though he no longer ruled the underworld, Anubis still played a vital role in determining the fate of souls. The climactic moment in Anubis's story comes when Ra officially hands over the title of Lord of the Underworld to Osiris. Anubis, who had been the sole ruler of the dead, was now reduced to an assistant, a helper in the grand scheme of the afterlife. This transition wasn't just about power. It represented a shift in how the ancient Egyptians viewed death itself. With Osiris as the ruler of the underworld, death was no longer a final end, but rather a path to resurrection and eternal life. Anubis's demotion signified this change. Death, which was once feared, became something more complex, a cycle of death and rebirth, governed by Osiris. Yet Anubis did not resist this change. Instead, he continued to play his part in the grand design of the gods, albeit in a different capacity. But the betrayal didn't come without its consequences. Anubis's presence began to diminish in later Egyptian mythology. While he was still respected, Osiris took the spotlight, becoming the most prominent god associated with the afterlife. Anubis's loyalty, while admirable, led to his reduced status in the pantheon. The gods had betrayed him, and in a way, so did the people, as Osiris's cult grew in prominence while Anubis's faded into the background. Yet, even with this betrayal, Anubis's role in Egyptian mythology remained significant. His image, with the black jackal head, symbolizes death, protection, and mummification. Even though he was overshadowed by Osiris, Anubis continues to evoke mystery and reverence in the stories of ancient Egypt. In the end, Anubis's story isn't just about death. It's about loyalty, betrayal, and the shifting power dynamics among the gods. Despite being betrayed by Ra and Osiris, Anubis remained a vital part of the afterlife, ensuring that souls were protected and that death remained sacred. His loyalty, even in the face of betrayal, made him one of the most enduring figures in Egyptian mythology. Anubis reminds us that sometimes, even when we give everything, we might still be pushed aside. But true loyalty, like that of Anubis, isn't about power, it's about duty. And though his role may have changed, Anubis's presence continues to loom large over the Egyptian afterlife. What do you think of Anubis's story? Does it change your perspective on this mysterious god of death? Let me know in the comments. And if you're fascinated by tales of ancient Egyptian mythology, make sure to hit that subscribe button and check out our next video where we explore the rise of Osiris and the battle between him and Set. Stay tuned for more mythological mysteries. Cleopatra VII, the last active ruler of the Ptolemaic Kingdom of Egypt, is often remembered for her intelligence, beauty, and her relationships with Julius Caesar and Mark Antony. But what many people don't realize is that before she ever became involved with the Romans, Cleopatra had to navigate a dangerous political landscape within her own family. Her relationships with her brothers were more than just family squabbles. They were battles for survival, control, and the future of Egypt. Cleopatra's family, the Ptolemies, were no strangers to infighting. Since the dynasty's foundation, sibling rivalry had been a common theme in their pursuit of power. Cleopatra's rise to power was no exception. Born into a royal family where alliances and betrayals were the norm, Cleopatra found herself in a constant power struggle with her younger brothers, Ptolemy XIII and Ptolemy XIV. Let's start with Ptolemy XIII, her younger brother and first co-ruler. By ancient Egyptian custom, Cleopatra and Ptolemy XIII were married when she ascended the throne, but this was purely a political arrangement. Cleopatra was 18 at the time, and Ptolemy XIII was only about 10 years old. As you can imagine, ruling alongside a child wasn't easy. Cleopatra was determined to rule in her own right, but Ptolemy XII's advisors, led by a cunning eunuch named Pothinus, quickly began to undermine her authority. Tensions between Cleopatra and Ptolemy XIII grew rapidly. Cleopatra's attempts to assert dominance were met with resistance, leading to a civil war that would soon engulf Egypt. Ptolemy's advisors convinced him that Cleopatra was too powerful and that she needed to be removed from power entirely. In a drastic move, Ptolemy XIII and his council forced Cleopatra to flee Alexandria. However, Cleopatra was not one to be easily defeated. She sought refuge and aligned herself with one of the most powerful men in the world, Julius Caesar. In what is perhaps one of the most legendary moments of her life, Cleopatra had herself smuggled into Caesar's chambers, reportedly rolled up in a carpet, to plead her case. This bold move won her Caesar's favor, and with his military backing, she was able to return to Alexandria, sparking the Alexandrian War. The war culminated in the infamous Battle of the Nile, where Caesar's forces decisively defeated Ptolemy XII's army. Ptolemy XIII, in a desperate attempt to escape, drowned in the Nile River. Cleopatra had successfully regained her throne, but the cost of this victory was the life of her own brother. Even after the death of Ptolemy XIII, Cleopatra's troubles were far from over. She now had to share power with another of her younger brothers, Ptolemy XIV, who she married according to tradition. But, much like her previous co-regency, this was merely a facade. Cleopatra maintained full control over Egypt, while Ptolemy XIV, who was still a boy, had little say in matters of state. Once again, Cleopatra relied on her intelligence and political savvy to maintain power, but she didn't just stop there. After Caesar's assassination in 44 BC, Cleopatra was quick to align herself with Mark Antony, one of Rome's most powerful men and Caesar's ally. This alliance, both romantic and political, strengthened Cleopatra's position but further strained her relationship with her brother Ptolemy XIV. Some sources suggest that Cleopatra saw her younger brother as a potential threat to her rule, and in a move that stunned even her contemporaries, she had Ptolemy XIV poisoned, clearing the way for her son, Caesarion, fathered by Julius Caesar, to become her co-ruler. This ruthless decision highlights just how far Cleopatra was willing to go to secure her throne. She knew that any potential rival could weaken her grip on power, and in the cutthroat world of ancient politics, family ties often came second to survival. Cleopatra's reign was marked by more than just these familial betrayals. The Ptolemaic dynasty was one of the most tumultuous in ancient history, and Cleopatra's relationships with her brothers are a prime example of how power struggles within royal families could shape the course of history. Cleopatra herself had witnessed the brutal tactics of her predecessors. For example, her father, Ptolemy XII, had been forced into exile after losing the support of the Alexandrian people, only to return with the help of Roman forces. This pattern of relying on foreign intervention to secure the throne was not new, but Cleopatra mastered it in a way that was unprecedented. It's important to understand that ancient Egypt during Cleopatra's time was not the Egypt of the grand pyramids and pharaohs of old. By this point, Egypt had been under foreign rule for centuries, and the Ptolemies themselves were of Macedonian Greek origin, not native Egyptians. Cleopatra, however, was unique among the Ptolemies in that she embraced Egyptian culture more fully than her predecessors. She spoke the Egyptian language, adopted religious symbols, and portrayed herself as the reincarnation of the goddess Isis. This helped to endear her to the Egyptian people, even as she navigated the dangerous waters of her own family's treachery. The Ptolemaic dynasty had always been marked by sibling rivalry and intrigue. For example, Cleopatra's own ancestors had seen similar struggles for power. Ptolemy VIII, known as Ptolemy Physcon, had famously married his niece, Cleopatra II, only to later marry her daughter, Cleopatra III, creating a web of family alliances and betrayals that spanned generations. Cleopatra was well aware of this history and knew that if she didn't act decisively, she could easily end up like her predecessors, overthrown or even dead. And of course, we can't discuss Cleopatra's story without mentioning her infamous relationship with Mark Antony. While her involvement with Julius Caesar had solidified her hold on power, her alliance with Antony would ultimately lead to her downfall. Their partnership, while initially successful, angered Rome, particularly Octavian, Caesar's heir and future Emperor Augustus. The Roman propaganda machine went into full swing, portraying Cleopatra as a manipulative seductress who had bewitched Antony, threatening the very stability of Rome. Their eventual defeat at the Battle of Actium marked the beginning of the end for Cleopatra's reign. But despite her dramatic downfall, Cleopatra's legacy endured. Her ability to navigate the treacherous world of politics, both within her family and on the international stage, remains a testament to her intelligence and resourcefulness. She was more than just a beautiful queen. She was a shrewd political operator who understood the importance of alliances, strategy, and timing. In the end, Cleopatra's relationships with her brothers were a key factor in her rise to power, but they also highlight the brutal realities of life as a ruler in ancient Egypt. Her willingness to betray her own blood to secure her throne shows just how high the stakes were. Yet, despite the betrayals, wars, and tragic endings, Cleopatra remains one of the most fascinating and complex figures in history. Her reign might have ended in tragedy, but her legacy lives on, not just as a queen who was involved with two of Rome's most powerful men, but as a ruler who fought tooth and nail to maintain her hold on Egypt. Cleopatra's story is a reminder that power, especially in the ancient world, often came at a steep price. Thanks for watching. If you want to dive deeper into the secrets of ancient Egypt and Cleopatra's world, make sure to check out our video on the mysterious and shocking truths behind the construction of the pyramids. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and let us know in the comments, what do you think was Cleopatra's greatest strength as a ruler? Did you know that the legacy of ancient Egyptian pharaohs still influences our world today? From the grand pyramids that touch the sky to the intricate tales of power, intrigue, and divine rule, the story of the pharaohs captivates our imagination. Join me as we journey through the rich history of these kings and queens of ancient Egypt. Welcome to our exploration of the pharaohs, those enigmatic rulers who governed one of history's most powerful civilizations. Their reigns were marked by monumental achievements, dramatic narratives, and profound cultural impact. Today, we'll delve into their lives, examining famous figures like Ramses II, Tutankhamun, and Cleopatra, and uncovering the enduring legacy they left behind. The story begins with the unification of Upper and Lower Egypt around 3100 BCE. Narmer, also known as Menes, is credited with this monumental achievement, symbolized by the Narmer palette, which depicts his victory. The pharaohs were considered divine rulers, intermediaries between the gods and the people, a belief that justified their absolute power. This divine kingship established a strong connection between the pharaoh and the gods, shaping the political and religious landscape of ancient Egypt. One of the most renowned pharaohs was Ramses II, often referred to as Ramses the Great. His reign from 1279 to 1213 BCE was marked by monumental construction projects, including the iconic temples at Abu Simbel, which were carved out of a mountainside to honor himself and the gods. Ramses II also engaged in significant military campaigns, most notably the Battle of Kadesh, where he faced off against the Hittites. His strategic prowess and impressive peace treaty showcased his ability to maintain stability in a tumultuous period. Next, we turn to Tutankhamun, the boy king who ascended the throne at just 9 years old. His reign may have been short-lived, but it became legendary after the discovery of his nearly intact tomb in 1922 by Howard Carter. The treasures found within, including his famous golden mask, offered invaluable insights into ancient Egyptian burial practices and material culture. Tutankhamun's restoration of traditional polytheistic worship after the monotheistic reign of Akhenaten further illustrates the dynamic nature of ancient Egyptian religion. No discussion of pharaohs would be complete without Cleopatra VII, the last pharaoh of Egypt. Known for her intelligence and political acumen, she forged alliances with powerful Roman leaders, including Julius Caesar and Mark Antony, to preserve her kingdom's independence amidst Roman expansion. Cleopatra's reign marked a significant cultural exchange between Rome and Egypt, influencing art, literature, and politics. Her dramatic life and untimely death symbolized the end of an era, as Egypt transitioned from a pharaonic dynasty to Roman rule. The construction of the pyramid stands as one of the most enduring legacies of the pharaohs. The Great Pyramid of Giza, built for Pharaoh Khufu, remains a testament to the ingenuity and ambition of ancient Egyptian engineering. Theories about how these monumental structures were built range from the use of a massive labor force to sophisticated ramps and levers. Each pyramid served not just as a tomb, but also as a symbol of the pharaoh's divine status and their journey into the afterlife. The pharaohs were deeply entwined with Egyptian mythology and religion. Major gods like Osiris, Isis, and Ra played crucial roles in daily life and governance. The pharaoh was often seen as the living embodiment of Horus, the sky god, and their reign was justified through the myth of divine order. Elaborate burial practices, including mummification and the construction of elaborate tombs, reflected the belief in an afterlife, ensuring the pharaoh's continued influence beyond death. While male pharaohs often dominated history, powerful women also shaped ancient Egypt. Hatshepsut, one of the few female pharaohs, ruled during the 18th dynasty and is known for her ambitious building projects, including her mortuary temple at Deir el-Bahari. Nefertiti, the wife of Akhenaten, played a significant role in promoting the worship of the sun god Aten. Their reigns illustrate the vital contributions of women in a male-dominated society. The decline of pharaonic power was gradual, influenced by internal strife, foreign invasions, and economic challenges. As Egypt faced incursions from the Libyans, Nubians, and eventually the Persians, the centralized power of the pharaohs weakened. The shift from divine kingship to foreign rule marked a significant transformation in Egyptian society. The pharaohs of ancient Egypt were not just rulers. They were cultural icons whose legacies continue to inspire awe and fascination. Their stories remind us of the complexity of leadership, the significance of cultural exchange, and the enduring impact of history on our modern world. What fascinates you the most about ancient Egyptian pharaohs? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more captivating tales from history. Join me as I dig deep into the mysteries of the Sphinx and try to uncover secrets buried in the desert sand. The Great Sphinx of Giza is one of the most iconic and mysterious monuments of ancient Egypt, standing watch over the pyramids and shrouded in secrecy and speculation for thousands of years. It has captured the imagination of historians, archaeologists, and travelers alike, each wondering about its traditions, purpose, and the stories hidden within its stone. But when it comes to unraveling the secrets of the Sphinx, historians and archaeologists face a multitude of challenges. One of the greatest obstacles in uncovering its secrets is the lack of written records. Unlike many other Egyptian monuments, there are no inscriptions or detailed accounts that explain its construction or purpose. This has led scholars to rely on theories, many of which are based on the surrounding archaeological context and the study of pharaonic history. Another challenge lies in the sheer age of the Sphinx. Believed to have been constructed around 2500 BC during the reign of Pharaoh Khafre, the monument has withstood millennia of erosion from the desert's harsh winds and sands. The relentless elements have eroded its surface, erasing intricate details and making it more difficult to determine its original appearance. On top of that, the Sphinx has undergone multiple restorations over the centuries, some of which may have altered its original features. These renovations have created more questions than answers about what is truly original and what was added later. To make matters worse, treasure hunters and looters have disrupted the surrounding area in search of valuables, further complicating efforts to understand its history. Despite these challenges, one of the prevailing theories is that the Sphinx was built as a monument to Pharaoh Khafre, whose pyramid stands nearby. Many scholars believe the Sphinx represents the likeness of Khafre himself, symbolizing his divine power and strength. This theory is supported by the Sphinx's proximity to the Khafre pyramid and its alignment with the architectural elements of the Giza Plateau. However, alternative theories suggest the Sphinx may have served other purposes. Some believe it could have been a guardian of the pyramids, standing watch over the sacred tombs of the pharaohs. Others speculate that the Sphinx was a symbol of divine wisdom, reflecting the pharaoh's role as a mediator between the gods and the people. In recent years, the discovery of tunnels and passageways beneath the Sphinx has added a new layer of intrigue. These hidden chambers, which have only been partially explored, may hold the key to understanding the true purpose of the Sphinx. Some researchers believe these tunnels could lead to undiscovered artifacts or texts that shed light on the monument's construction and significance. Could these chambers contain the lost knowledge of the ancient builders, or are they the result of later modifications? One of the most controversial theories surrounding the Sphinx is that it might be much older than traditionally believed. Some geologists studying erosion patterns on the Sphinx's body have proposed that the monument was exposed to significant rainfall and flooding, possibly during the end of the last ice age, around 10,000 BC. If true, this would place the construction of the Sphinx thousands of years before the reign of Khafre, potentially making it one of the oldest monuments on Earth. This theory, known as the water erosion hypothesis, has sparked fierce debate among scholars. If the Sphinx truly predates the pyramids, it would force us to reconsider everything we know about early Egyptian civilization. It could suggest that an earlier, lost civilization built the Sphinx, and that much of Egypt's monumental architecture may have been inspired by this forgotten era. Beyond its construction and purpose, the Sphinx has long been a symbol of mystery, power, and wisdom. Its lion body and human head are believed to represent the combination of animal strength and human intelligence, qualities that the ancient Egyptians revered. Some also associate the Sphinx with the sun god Ra, as it faces east toward the rising sun. This alignment has led to speculation that the Sphinx played a role in solar worship, possibly acting as a protector or symbol of rebirth and renewal. In modern culture, the Sphinx's enigmatic presence continues to captivate the imagination. From movies and books to documentaries and artwork, the Sphinx has become an enduring symbol of mystery and the quest for knowledge. It has appeared in countless biographies and historical profiles, representing the endless pursuit of uncovering the truth about our past. Its image serves as a reminder that even in the modern world, there are still secrets left to be discovered, waiting to be unearthed by those who dare to seek them. As we continue to explore the mysteries of the Sphinx, we are reminded that the pursuit of knowledge is never complete. There are always new questions to ask, new secrets to uncover, and new discoveries to be made. The Great Sphinx of Giza is not just a monument from the past. It is a living symbol of humanity's curiosity and determination to understand the world around us. Thanks for joining me on this journey into the heart of the Sphinx. If you have any thoughts or theories about this ancient enigma, I'd love to hear them in the comments below. And if you'd like me to explore more ancient mysteries in future videos, let me know. Atlas, the strongest of the Titans, was condemned to an eternity of holding up the sky. But was his punishment truly deserved, or was it an overreaction by Zeus? In today's video, we're diving deep into the myth of Atlas to uncover whether the punishment fit the crime, or if there's more to the story than meets the eye. Greek mythology is filled with powerful gods, rebellious titans, and epic punishments. One of the most famous punishments is the story of Atlas. As a leader of the Titans in their battle against Zeus and the Olympians, Atlas faced a fate that would change his life forever. After the Titans were defeated in the Titanomachy, the great war between the old gods and the new, Zeus sentenced Atlas to hold the weight of the heavens on his shoulders for all eternity. But was this punishment really justified, or was Atlas simply a victim of Zeus' wrath? To understand Atlas' fate, we have to go back to the beginning. The Titanomachy was an all-out war between the Titans, led by Cronus, and the Olympians, led by Zeus. Atlas wasn't just any Titan. He was a commander, a symbol of strength, and a close ally of Cronus. In many versions of the myth, he's depicted as one of the most dedicated fighters against the Olympian gods, standing tall and fearless in the face of Zeus' rebellion. When the Olympians won the war, Zeus had a choice: forgive or punish. For most Titans, the punishment was imprisonment in Tartarus, the deepest part of the underworld. But for Atlas, Zeus had something far more personal in mind. Instead of being thrown into Tartarus like his fellow Titans, Atlas was given a unique and symbolic punishment: holding up the heavens on his shoulders. In some interpretations, this means holding up the sky to separate it from the earth. It's a burden that represents not just physical strength, but also immense responsibility. But why Atlas? Many myths suggest that Atlas' punishment was meant to be a warning, a reminder to anyone who dared to defy Zeus. Atlas wasn't just any Titan. He was one of the key players in the war, and by making him bear the weight of the heavens, Zeus asserted his dominance over both the Titans and the universe itself. Now, let's dive into the real question. Did Atlas deserve this punishment? On one hand, he did actively fight against the Olympians and sought to keep the Titans in power. But compared to other punishments, was this fate too harsh? Other Titans, like Cronus, were simply imprisoned in Tartarus. Prometheus, another famous Titan, suffered daily torment, but even his punishment eventually ended. In contrast, Atlas' punishment was never-ending. It wasn't just painful, it was isolating. Condemned to hold up the sky for all eternity, Atlas was separated from both the earth below and the gods above. Some scholars believe that this punishment was symbolic of more than just rebellion. Atlas, in a way, represented the burden of leadership and responsibility. His fate could be interpreted as Zeus' way of forcing Atlas to bear the weight of the world, literally and figuratively, for his actions. The image of Atlas, carrying the heavens on his shoulders, has become one of the most enduring symbols in mythology. In fact, even today, we often refer to people who bear heavy responsibilities as having the weight of the world on their shoulders. But what's interesting is how different cultures and periods interpreted Atlas' punishment. In some ancient art, Atlas is depicted as a tragic figure, stoic and strong, yet forever burdened. This can be seen as a metaphor for endurance in the face of hardship. Some versions of the myth even suggest that Atlas wasn't being punished, but rather, he was chosen because he was the only one strong enough to hold up the heavens. Was Zeus perhaps acknowledging Atlas' strength, even in defeat? Atlas' story didn't end with his punishment. He appears in other myths as well, most notably when the hero Heracles, or Hercules, comes to him for help during his 12 labors. Heracles needed the golden apples from the Garden of the Hesperides, and Atlas, being the father of the Hesperides, knew the way. For a brief moment, Atlas was free from his burden. Heracles took his place, holding the heavens while Atlas retrieved the apples. However, when Atlas tried to trick Heracles into carrying the heavens forever, Heracles outsmarted him and left Atlas to resume his eternal task. This part of the myth adds another layer to Atlas' character, one of cunning, perhaps desperation, but ultimately a return to his fate. So, did Atlas deserve his punishment? In many ways, Atlas' fate feels disproportionate to his crime. After all, he was just one of many titans who opposed Zeus. But Zeus' decision to make Atlas bear the weight of the heavens wasn't just about punishment. It was about sending a message. Atlas' story continues to captivate us because it resonates with the concept of strength, responsibility, and the price of rebellion. His punishment was not just physical, but deeply symbolic, and it continues to remind us of the balance of power and the burdens that come with leadership. What do you think? Was Atlas' punishment fair? Or was Zeus simply asserting his dominance? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more deep dives into the myths and legends of ancient history. If you enjoyed this video, check out my other videos on Greek mythology, where we explore the fascinating stories of the gods, titans. Join me as I dive into the wild world of Seth, the Egyptian god of chaos and disorder, and see if I can uncover his secrets while tackling some chaotic challenges along the way. Seth has often been considered one of the more controversial figures in Egyptian mythology, but there's so much more to him than his role as a troublemaker. He's a god of complexity, duality, and balance. And by the end of this video, you'll see why. So, buckle up as we tackle Seth's wild and often misunderstood story. Now, Seth is known as the god of chaos, but let's explore what that really means. On the surface, his name is associated with disorder, but Seth wasn't just some random force of destruction. He had a significant role in maintaining the balance of the universe. Despite his chaotic nature, Seth was necessary for keeping the forces of creation and destruction in harmony. So, how does a god known for causing so much chaos also become vital to the world's balance? Let's find out. For the ancient Egyptians, balance was everything. Without it, the world would descend into chaos. But here's where things get interesting. Chaos wasn't always bad. Seth, as the god of chaos, was paradoxically also the protector of pharaohs, especially in the afterlife. While Seth might seem like a destructive force, he was also the one who kept the forces of the underworld in check. Isn't it fascinating that this god, who represents so much disruption, could also be seen as a protector? Seth's dual nature is what makes him so captivating. On the one hand, he was the god of the desert and foreign lands, places that were seen as hostile and dangerous. Because of this, he was sometimes seen as an outsider among the other Egyptian gods. His connection to the barren, desolate desert lands made him a figure of fear and awe. But on the other hand, Seth had his moments of heroism. For example, He defended the sun god Ra from the monstrous serpent Apophis during Ra's nightly journey through the underworld. Talk about a wild ride. But despite these positive moments, Seth is most famous, or should I say infamous, for his role in the myth of Osiris. According to Egyptian legend, Seth killed his brother Osiris, the god of the afterlife, cutting his body into pieces and scattering them across Egypt. But the story doesn't end there. Osiris' wife, Isis, gathered the pieces and, with the help of magic, brought him back to life just long enough to conceive their son, Horus. Now, here's where the epic battle comes in. Seth wasn't exactly thrilled about Horus, the son of Osiris, claiming the throne of Egypt. What followed was one of the most intense rivalries in all of mythology, Seth versus Horus. Their battles weren't just physical. They were symbolic of the struggle between chaos and order. While Horus represented light, justice, and kingship, Seth represented disorder and the unknown. This conflict wasn't just about two gods fighting. It was a representation of the eternal struggle that the Egyptians believed governed the universe. Seth's defeat by Horus marked a significant turning point in Egyptian mythology. Horus became the king of Egypt, and Seth, the god of chaos, was cast into the desert. But even then, Seth's role wasn't over. The Egyptians knew that chaos was never truly vanquished. It was simply kept at bay. This delicate balance between Seth's chaotic nature and Horus' order was essential to the Egyptians' understanding of the universe. Seth's story is a reminder that even chaos has its place in the grand scheme of things. While he might be feared for his destructive tendencies, he also had moments of heroism and protection. In the end, Seth symbolizes the eternal struggle between chaos and order, forces that are not just opposites, but parts of a whole. So, next time you think about chaos, remember Seth and how even the most disruptive forces can have a purpose in maintaining balance. Thanks for joining me on this deep dive into the world of Seth, the Egyptian god of chaos and disorder. If you enjoyed learning about his complex role in Egyptian mythology, hit that like button and share your thoughts in the comments. Which part of Seth's story surprised you the most? And don't forget to subscribe for more videos on ancient myths and legends. Until next time, stay curious and keep exploring. Join me as I dive into the mystery of the Trojan War to see if I can find real archaeological evidence that backs up Homer's Iliad. The Trojan War, an epic tale of love, honor, and war, has captivated human imagination for millennia. From Homer's ancient epic poem, the Iliad, to modern-day Hollywood blockbusters, the story of Troy has been retold and reinterpreted countless times. But as we immerse ourselves in this world of heroism and tragedy, a nagging question lingers. Did the Trojan War actually happen, or is it just a product of ancient Greek mythology? This question has intrigued scholars, archaeologists, and historians for centuries. The challenge of distinguishing between myth and historical fact is not an easy one. On the one hand, we have the Iliad, a literary masterpiece brimming with gods, larger-than-life heroes, and divine intervention in human affairs. On the other hand, we have the archaeological record, which, while much more grounded in physical evidence, leaves us with many unanswered questions. How do we separate the mythological embellishments from possible historical events? One of the reasons this debate has persisted for so long is that the Iliad is a work of literature, not a historical account in the traditional sense. As an epic poem, it blends history, mythology, and legend, leaving modern scholars with the task of sorting fact from fiction. The debate over the reality of the Trojan War begins with these literary questions, but it extends deep into the realm of archaeology. Those who believe that the Trojan War was purely a myth point to the numerous anachronisms in the Iliad. The presence of gods on the battlefield, Achilles' near invincibility, and the wooden horse used to trick the Trojans into their own demise, all make it difficult to believe that such events could have any historical basis. However, others argue that, despite its mythological aspects, the Iliad's attention to geographical details and the vivid description of Troy itself point to the possibility that Homer was drawing upon real historical events. This brings us to the archaeological record. Is there any evidence that can either support or refute the idea that the Trojan War, or at least some form of it, really took place? One of the key figures in the search for Troy was Heinrich Schliemann, a German archaeologist who, in the 19th century, believed he had uncovered the remains of the ancient city of Troy in modern-day Turkey. His discovery at a site called Hizarlik unearthed what he thought were the ruins of the city described in Homer's Iliad. However, Schliemann's methods were controversial. Critics argue that his excavation techniques were crude by today's standards, and that his eagerness to match his finds to Homer's story may have led him to interpret the evidence too optimistically. Nonetheless, the discovery of Hizarlik opened the door to serious scholarly investigation. Archaeologists who followed in Schliemann's footsteps uncovered evidence that suggests that the site had been occupied for thousands of years, with layers upon layers of cities built atop one another. This layered cake of destruction and rebuilding provides a tantalizing puzzle. If there really was a Trojan War, which layer of the city might correspond to the one destroyed in Homer's account? One layer in particular has drawn significant attention. Known as Troy VIA, this layer dates back to approximately 1180 BCE, around the time the Trojan War is thought to have occurred. The city in this layer shows clear signs of violent destruction, possibly by fire, which corresponds with Homer's description of the fall of Troy. Some of the artifacts found in this layer, including pottery and gold jewelry, suggest a culture that closely resembles that of the Mycenaean Greeks, who were said to have besieged Troy in the Iliad. However, the lack of direct evidence, such as weapons or armor that could be definitively linked to the Greek invaders, leaves room for doubt. Critics argue that the destruction of Troy VIA could have been caused by a variety of factors, including natural disasters, local conflicts, or invasions by other groups, rather than by a grand war between the Greeks and Trojans, as described in the Iliad. This is where the debate intensifies. Proponents of the historical Trojan War theory point to the circumstantial evidence, the convergence of archaeological findings, the linguistic clues in Homer's text, and the cultural exchange between the Mycenaeans and the people of Troy as strong indicators that the story may have roots in real events. They argue that the epic poem, while embellished with mythological details, could have been based on an actual conflict, with the characters and events exaggerated over time. On the other hand, skeptics argue that while Troy may have been a real place and could have experienced a conflict, the war described by Homer is more likely a fictionalized version of various historical events, amalgamated into one grand story. They point to the lack of direct evidence tying the city's destruction to a Greek invasion and the absence of conclusive artifacts, such as Mycenaean weaponry, that would support the Iliad-esque narrative. Another piece of the puzzle lies in the cultural significance of the Iliad itself. Homer's epic was written centuries after the events it describes are thought to have occurred, during a time when oral tradition was the primary means of preserving history. It's possible that the Iliad represents a collective memory of various wars fought by the Mycenaeans, with the story of Troy standing in as a symbol for these broader conflicts. Despite the gaps in the archaeological record, it's hard to ignore the compelling details that suggest there may be more to the story than mere myth. The fact that the Iliad provides such vivid descriptions of places, characters, and events has led some scholars to suggest that it could be based on real historical figures, with Achilles, Hector, and Agamemnon possibly inspired by actual leaders of the time. As we piece together the evidence from Hizarlik, the ongoing excavations continue to reveal more about the ancient city of Troy. Each new discovery brings us closer to understanding whether the Trojan War was a historical event, a poetic retelling of real conflicts, or a masterful blend of fact and fiction. Scholars have discovered more artifacts that shed light on life in ancient Troy, including tools, remnants of fortifications, and intricate ceramics, further enhancing our understanding of this enigmatic city. In my opinion, the most compelling argument for the historical authenticity of the Trojan War comes from the sheer accumulation of circumstantial evidence. While each individual piece of evidence may be open to interpretation, the convergence of multiple lines of evidence, from the archaeological record to the linguistic and cultural analysis of the Iliad, suggests that there may be more to the story than just myth. Of course, this is not to say that the events described in the Iliad happened exactly as written, but rather that there may be a kernel of truth hidden beneath the layers of myth and legend. So, what's the verdict? Did the Trojan War actually happen, Or is it just a product of ancient Greek imagination? The debate will likely continue for generations to come, with each new discovery shedding more light on the mystery. One thing is certain, however: the search for Troy is a testament to human curiosity and our enduring fascination with the past. Thanks for joining me on this journey into the heart of the Trojan War mystery. If you've got thoughts on the subject, be sure to share them in the comments below. And if you're ready to dive into more historical mysteries, be sure to check out my next video. Prepare to embark on an extraordinary journey that will challenge everything you think you know about human history. Could it be that ancient civilizations were not as isolated as we've always believed? What if humanity's greatest achievements, the construction of the pyramids, the creation of the Nazca lines, and other monumental feats, weren't solely the work of mankind, but influenced by visitors from beyond our world? The theory of ancient aliens has fascinated and mystified people for decades. Today, we're diving deep into Eric von Daniken's groundbreaking book and documentary, Chariots of the Gods, which raises an astonishing question. Were ancient civilizations visited by extraterrestrial beings? Stick around as we uncover mind-blowing evidence that might change the way you see history forever. The idea of extraterrestrial contact with ancient civilizations, known as the ancient astronaut theory, suggests that aliens may have played a role in shaping human history. This theory, popularized by Eric von Daniken, argues that some of our ancestors' greatest achievements, from advanced architecture to complex knowledge of the stars, were either influenced or directly aided by beings from other worlds. But why would extraterrestrials visit Earth? And what clues did they leave behind to prove it? Many point to ancient texts, strange artifacts, and inexplicable structures that continue to baffle historians and scientists alike. Let's start by examining one of the most iconic mysteries: the Pyramids of Giza. These massive, perfectly aligned structures are more than just impressive tombs for Egypt's ancient rulers. Some argue that their advanced design and precise construction hint at knowledge far beyond what should have been possible for the time. The Great Pyramid, for example, was constructed with such accuracy that modern engineers are still puzzled by how it was achieved without modern technology. Were the Egyptians using knowledge imparted by extraterrestrials? And if so, what was the true purpose of these towering monuments? Another enigmatic site is the Nazca lines in Peru. Sprawling across the desert floor, these massive geoglyphs can only be fully appreciated from the sky. They depict animals, geometric shapes, and humanoid figures, leading some to believe they were created as messages or markers for visitors from above. The question remains: why would an ancient civilization create such intricate designs if they could only be seen from the air? Could the Nazca people have been communicating with beings who could fly? But it's not just the structures that raise questions. There are countless ancient artifacts and texts that suggest extraterrestrial contact. Take, for example, the ancient Sumerian tablets. These texts, dating back thousands of years, describe beings called the Anunnaki, who came down from the sky to teach humanity the arts of civilization. Were the Anunnaki simply mythological gods, or could they have been extraterrestrial visitors sharing advanced knowledge with early humans? Then there's the mystery of the ancient Indian texts, particularly the Vedas, which contain descriptions of flying machines called Vimanas. These ancient scriptures speak of celestial beings piloting these flying crafts across the skies, engaging in aerial battles, and traveling between worlds. It's fascinating to think that the concept of flying vehicles existed in human imagination long before modern technology made it possible. Could these stories have been inspired by real-life encounters with advanced alien technology? Perhaps one of the most compelling and debated pieces of evidence comes from the Bible itself. In the book of Ezekiel, the prophet describes a strange vision of a whirlwind coming from the north, accompanied by a fiery wheel within a wheel. The object was described as being full of eyes and capable of moving in any direction without turning. While traditional interpretations of this vision lean toward the spiritual, some researchers believe Ezekiel might have been describing a close encounter with an extraterrestrial spacecraft. The wheel within a wheel is remarkably similar to modern descriptions of UFOs. Could it be that Ezekiel witnessed something far beyond his comprehension? These ancient stories raise an interesting question. Could many of the gods and deities worshipped by ancient civilizations have actually been extraterrestrial visitors? Throughout history, there are countless examples of gods descending from the heavens to interact with humans. From the Greek gods on Mount Olympus to the divine rulers of ancient Egypt, these beings were often depicted as possessing incredible power and advanced knowledge. But what if these gods weren't supernatural beings at all? What if they were visitors from another planet, mistaken by early humans for deities? Some researchers argue that extraterrestrials may have influenced religious beliefs around the world, leaving behind symbols and rituals that we still practice today. From the mysterious depictions of winged figures in ancient Sumerian art to the fiery chariots described in religious texts, the parallels between stories of gods and potential alien encounters are hard to ignore. Of course, not everyone is convinced. Mainstream historians and archaeologists often dismiss the ancient astronaut theory as pseudoscience, arguing that human ingenuity alone is enough to explain the marvels of ancient architecture and technology. They point out that many of the so-called evidence for alien contact can be explained through traditional methods, such as human experimentation and ingenuity over time. Critics also argue that attributing human achievements to extraterrestrial intervention undermines the capabilities of our ancestors. But for every skeptic, there are also believers who point to the unanswered questions. Why do so many ancient cultures, separated by vast distances and time, have similar myths about beings from the sky? How could civilizations with no contact with each other have developed such advanced knowledge of astronomy, engineering, and mathematics? Could it be more than just coincidence? Whether you believe in the ancient astronaut theory or not, one thing is certain. The mysteries of our past are far from fully understood. From the unexplained structures that continue to baffle scientists to the ancient texts that speak of celestial beings, there's still so much we don't know about our own history. And as we continue to explore the possibilities, the question remains: could we be looking at the remnants of a forgotten encounter with extraterrestrial visitors? So, what do you think? Are ancient aliens responsible for some of the greatest mysteries of human history? Or is it just an imaginative theory? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to hit the like button if you enjoyed this deep dive into the unknown. If you're fascinated by ancient mysteries and the possibility of extraterrestrial contact, be sure to subscribe for more content that explores the questions that could change how we see the world. Thanks for watching, and stay curious. Cleopatra, the last pharaoh of ancient Egypt, was one of history's most captivating figures. Her life was filled with power, romance, and political intrigue, but it was her tragic final days that truly shaped her enduring legacy. Cleopatra's demise wasn't just the fall of a queen. It marked the end of an era. Today, we're diving deep into the complex events leading up to her tragic death and trying to piece together the real story behind her last moments. After the assassination of Julius Caesar in 44 BCE, Cleopatra found herself in an incredibly precarious position. Julius Caesar had been both her lover and protector, and with him gone, her once secure alliance with Rome was suddenly unstable. Egypt was a prosperous but vulnerable kingdom, already weakened by internal strife and years of war. Cleopatra knew that in order to keep her kingdom alive, she had to quickly navigate the shifting political landscape that followed Caesar's death. She was up against not just rivals within Egypt, but a rapidly changing Roman Empire. In the aftermath of Caesar's assassination, Rome descended into chaos, and a new power struggle erupted. Cleopatra's first move was to align herself with another Roman power player, Mark Antony. Antony was one of Caesar's most trusted generals and a member of the powerful triumvirate that now controlled Rome, along with Octavian and Lepidus. Cleopatra and Antony's relationship wasn't just strategic, it was also passionate. Antony was drawn to Cleopatra's intelligence, charisma, and beauty, and the two quickly became lovers. Their alliance, however, was far more than just a romantic affair. It was a calculated move on Cleopatra's part to maintain her power and Egypt's independence. Mark Antony had his own reasons for joining forces with Cleopatra. He needed the wealth and resources that Egypt could provide to strengthen his position in Rome's ongoing civil wars. Cleopatra, in turn, needed Antony's military might to fend off threats both from within Egypt and from Rome. But as their relationship blossomed, it also became a source of scandal and political tension. Antony's enemies in Rome, particularly Octavian, used his relationship with Cleopatra to undermine him, accusing Antony of abandoning Roman values in favor of an exotic foreign queen. The real turning point came in 31 BCE at the Battle of Actium, a decisive naval confrontation between the forces of Octavian and the combined fleets of Antony and Cleopatra. Antony's fleet was ultimately outmatched, and the battle was a disaster for both him and Cleopatra. As Octavian's forces closed in, Antony and Cleopatra were forced to retreat back to Alexandria, where they made their last stand. With their military strength shattered and Octavian's army encircling the city, Cleopatra knew that their time was running out. One of the most pivotal moments during these final days was Cleopatra's realization that Antony's defeat was inevitable. She had long been a master of political maneuvering, using her charm, intelligence, and diplomatic skill to survive in a world dominated by men. But now, even her renowned ability to outwit her opponents was no longer enough to save her kingdom. Alexandria was on the verge of falling, and Cleopatra began to prepare for the worst. She attempted to negotiate with Octavian, hoping to secure a future for herself and her children. But Octavian had no interest in a deal. He wanted total victory, and Cleopatra's defeat was a necessary part of that. With no options left, Cleopatra made one final, fateful decision. According to ancient accounts, she had been keeping a collection of highly venomous asps in her chambers, which she planned to use in the event of her capture. Cleopatra knew that if she were taken prisoner by Octavian, she would be paraded through the streets of Rome as a trophy of war, humiliated in front of the same empire she had once defied. Rather than suffer such a fate, Cleopatra chose to end her life on her own terms. The image of Cleopatra's death, reclining on a bed of silk, calmly applying the deadly snake to her arm, has become one of the most iconic moments in history, though modern historians question the accuracy of this romanticized account. But Cleopatra's suicide was not just a personal act of defiance. It was a political statement. By taking her own life, she denied Octavian the satisfaction of capturing her alive and making her a symbol of his conquest. In death, Cleopatra became a martyr for her people and a symbol of resistance against Rome's expanding empire. Her death also marked the official end of Egypt's ancient monarchy and the beginning of its transformation into a Roman province. The story of Cleopatra's final days is not just a tale of personal tragedy. It's also a reminder of the brutal and unforgiving nature of ancient politics. Cleopatra was a ruler who fought fiercely for her kingdom, her family, and her legacy, but in the end, even she could not escape the power of Rome. Her downfall came not from a lack of intelligence or ambition, but from the overwhelming force of Roman imperialism. Today, Cleopatra is remembered not only for her beauty and her famous lovers, but also for her intelligence, her leadership, and her relentless determination to protect Egypt. Her legacy continues to captivate historians, artists, and filmmakers alike, and her life serves as a powerful reminder of the complex interplay between love, power, and politics in the ancient world. Cleopatra's final act, choosing to end her own life rather than submit to Rome, has become a symbol of defiance and independence. Her death may have marked the end of an era, but her story endures as one of the most fascinating in history. What do you think of Cleopatra's final days? Was she a tragic figure caught in the tides of history, or a brilliant leader who made the best of an impossible situation? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to check out our next video on another influential figure from ancient history, Alexander the Great. Thanks for watching. Join me as we delve into the incredible journey of Alexander the Great, one of history's most legendary conquerors. From the moment he ascended the throne of Macedonia in 336 BC at just 20 years old, Alexander faced overwhelming challenges. Yet he forged an empire that stretched from Greece to Egypt and deep into Asia. Alexander's path to greatness was not without obstacles. Upon taking the throne after his father Philip II's assassination, Alexander had to secure his rule over a kingdom that was constantly threatened by internal and external forces. Macedonian nobles questioned his legitimacy, and neighboring regions saw an opportunity to rebel. Alexander wasted no time in quelling these uprisings, displaying both tactical brilliance and ruthless efficiency in consolidating his power. His decisive victories in Thrace, Illyria, and Thebes demonstrated his capability to lead and command absolute loyalty from his soldiers. But Alexander's ambitions extended far beyond securing his kingdom. Inspired by his tutor Aristotle and driven by an insatiable desire for conquest, he set his sights on the Persian Empire, the most powerful kingdom in the known world. In 334 BC, he crossed the Hellespont with his army, marking the beginning of his grand campaign against Persia. It was here, in battle after battle, that Alexander's military genius would be revealed. At the Battle of Granicus, he faced Persian satraps and their Greek mercenaries, a formidable force that could have stopped his advance. But Alexander led his cavalry with unmatched ferocity, charging directly into the heart of the enemy lines. This bold move not only secured victory, but also set the tone for the rest of his campaign. Fearless, relentless, and strategically brilliant. Alexander's next great challenge came at the Battle of Issus in 333 BC, where he faced the Persian king Darius III for the first time. Despite being outnumbered, Alexander's tactical prowess turned the tide of the battle. Using the terrain to his advantage, he launched a surprise attack on Darius's forces, causing chaos and panic among the Persian ranks. Darius fled the battlefield, leaving behind his family and treasures, a testament to Alexander's dominance and his ability to outthink even the most powerful adversaries. However, Alexander's most defining victory came at the Battle of Gaugamela in 331 BC. Here, once again vastly outnumbered by Darius's forces, Alexander employed his famous hammer and anvil tactic. He drew the Persians out of position with his cavalry, creating a gap in their lines, and then delivered a crushing blow with his infantry. This battle marked the final defeat of Darius III, and with it, Alexander claimed the title of King of Persia. But military conquest was only part of Alexander's vision. He sought to unite the many cultures within his vast empire. In Egypt, he was declared a pharaoh and founded the city of Alexandria, which would become a center of learning and culture. He adopted elements of Persian dress and customs, encouraged marriages between his soldiers and local women, and promoted the idea of a blended Greco-Persian ruling class. His aim was not just to conquer, but to create a unified empire where Greek and Eastern cultures could coexist. Throughout his campaign, Alexander faced not only external enemies, but also internal strife. His men, weary from years of marching and fighting, grew restless. In 326 BC, after reaching the banks of the Hyphasis River in India, his army refused to march further, exhausted and longing for home. Though Alexander longed to push on to the ends of the known world, he understood the necessity of maintaining the loyalty of his troops. He reluctantly agreed to turn back, showing that even the greatest of conquerors must at times yield to the needs of those they lead. Alexander's adaptability was also evident in his ability to adjust his strategies as he ventured into unfamiliar territories. In India, he faced King Porus at the Battle of the Hydaspes, where the Indian forces brought war elephants into the fray. This was a new and terrifying challenge, but Alexander, as always, adapted. He outmaneuvered Porus by crossing the river at night and launching a surprise attack, ultimately securing victory and earning the respect of his opponent. Perhaps the most symbolic moment of Alexander's life was his decision to burn his ships after crossing into Persia, removing any possibility of retreat. This decisive act demonstrated his absolute commitment to his mission. For Alexander, failure was not an option. His relentless pursuit of victory, combined with his boldness and strategic brilliance, ensured that he would be remembered as one of history's greatest military leaders. Despite his many triumphs, Alexander's life was tragically cut short. In 323 BC, at the age of just 32, he fell ill and died in Babylon. His empire, which he had worked so hard to build, fragmented soon after his death, divided among his generals. Yet his legacy endured. Alexander's conquests spread Greek culture throughout the known world, laying the foundation for the Hellenistic period, an era that saw unprecedented cultural exchange and intellectual advancement. Alexander the Great remains a symbol of ambition, courage, and leadership. His journey from a young king of Macedonia to the ruler of the largest empire the world had ever seen is a testament to his unparalleled vision and determination. He was a man who, despite the odds, dared to dream of a united world, and for a brief moment in history, he achieved it. In conclusion, Alexander's journey was one of unparalleled conquest, driven by ambition, genius, and a desire to leave a lasting legacy. Though his empire did not last, his impact on history is undeniable. Alexander the Great will forever be remembered as a conqueror who reshaped the world in his image. If you're fascinated by more legendary figures and their extraordinary stories, don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more captivating historical content. In our next video, we'll explore another iconic historical figure or delve into the beauty and significance of the Taj Mahal, as well as fascinating aspects of Indian culture. And here's a fun way to get involved. If you're from the USA, type A in the comments, Europe type B, Asia type C, and other countries type D. Or feel free to type your country's name. This helps me understand where my viewers are from and lets me create videos based on your specific interests. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you won't miss out on upcoming content tailored just for you. In the annals of history, Baldwin IV, the leper king of Jerusalem, stands as a shining example of determination and courage. Born in 1161, Baldwin was not like other boys his age. Join me as I dive into the wild world of Seth, the Egyptian god of chaos and disorder, and see if I can uncover his secrets while tackling some chaotic challenges along the way. Seth has often been considered one of the more controversial figures in Egyptian mythology, but there's so much more to him than his role as a troublemaker. He's a god of complexity, duality, and balance. And by the end of this video, you'll see why. So, buckle up as we tackle Seth's wild and often misunderstood story. Now, Seth is known as the god of chaos, but let's explore what that really means. On the surface, his name is associated with disorder, but Seth wasn't just some random force of destruction. He had a significant role in maintaining the balance of the universe. Despite his chaotic nature, Seth was necessary for keeping the forces of creation and destruction in harmony. So, how does a god known for causing so much chaos also become vital to the world's balance? Let's find out. For the ancient Egyptians, balance was everything. Without it, the world would descend into chaos. But here's where things get interesting. Chaos wasn't always bad. Seth, as the god of chaos, was paradoxically also the protector of pharaohs, especially in the afterlife. While Seth might seem like a destructive force, he was also the one who kept the forces of the underworld in check. Isn't it fascinating that this god, who represents so much disruption, could also be seen as a protector? Seth's dual nature is what makes him so captivating. On the one hand, he was the god of the desert and foreign lands, places that were seen as hostile and dangerous. Because of this, he was sometimes seen as an outsider among the other Egyptian gods. His connection to the barren, desolate desert lands made him a figure of fear and awe. But on the other hand, Seth had his moments of heroism. For example, he defended the sun god Ra from the monstrous serpent Apophis during Ra's nightly journey through the underworld. Talk about a wild ride. But despite these positive moments, Seth is most famous, or should I say infamous, for his role in the myth of Osiris. According to Egyptian legend, Seth killed his brother Osiris, the god of the afterlife, cutting his body into pieces and scattering them across Egypt. But the story doesn't end there. Osiris' wife, Isis, gathered the pieces and, with the help of magic, brought him back to life just long enough to conceive their son, Horus. Now, here's where the epic battle comes in. Seth wasn't exactly thrilled about Horus, the son of Osiris, claiming the throne of Egypt. What followed was one of the most intense rivalries in all of mythology, Seth versus Horus. Their battles weren't just physical. They were symbolic of the struggle between chaos and order. While Horus represented light, justice, and kingship, Seth represented disorder, and the unknown. This conflict wasn't just about two gods fighting. It was a representation of the eternal struggle that the Egyptians believed governed the universe. Seth's defeat by Horus marked a significant turning point in Egyptian mythology. Horus became the king of Egypt, and Seth, the god of chaos, was cast into the desert. But even then, Seth's role wasn't over. The Egyptians knew that chaos was never truly vanquished. It was simply kept at bay. This delicate balance between Seth's chaotic nature and Horus' order was essential to the Egyptians' understanding of the universe. Seth's story is a reminder that even chaos has its place in the grand scheme of things. While he might be feared for his destructive tendencies, he also had moments of heroism and protection. In the end, Seth symbolizes the eternal struggle between chaos and order, forces that are not just opposites, but parts of a whole. So, next time you think about chaos, remember Seth and how even the most disruptive forces can have a purpose in maintaining balance. Thanks for joining me on this deep dive into the world of Seth, the Egyptian god of chaos and disorder. Did you know that not all gods in Greek mythology were loved by the people? In fact, some gods were feared and even hated. Ares, the god of war, was one such figure. His name alone sparked terror on the battlefield. But was he really just a bloodthirsty warrior? Or is there more to his story? Join me as we unravel the tale of Ares, the mighty and controversial Greek god of war. Ares, the son of Zeus, the king of the gods, and Hera, the queen, was a powerful figure in ancient Greek mythology. Unlike other gods who were celebrated for their wisdom or beauty, Ares embodied raw, brutal violence and chaos. He wasn't the strategic mind behind wars. That honor went to his half-sister Athena. Instead, Ares represented the sheer fury of battle, the bloodshed, the screams, and the relentless fighting. He stood for the violent, chaotic nature of war, unpredictable and dangerous. While other gods, like Athena, focused on the tactics and justifications for conflict, Ares gloried in the violence itself. His mere presence was said to ignite bloodlust, inspiring warriors to fight with reckless abandon. But, unlike Athena, Ares was not a god the Greeks admired. His role in mythology was controversial, and he wasn't held in the same regard as other Olympians. In Homer's Iliad, we get a glimpse of Ares' violent nature during the Trojan War. He fought on the side of the Trojans, causing chaos and destruction wherever he went. But despite his strength and brutality, Ares was often depicted as a cowardly figure who could be defeated and humiliated. In one famous episode, the goddess Athena strikes him down during battle, showing that war, driven purely by rage, is ultimately self-destructive. Ares also had a volatile relationship with the other gods. Even his own father, Zeus, was not fond of him, calling him the most hated of all his children. Unlike the heroes of Greek mythology, who often fought for noble causes, Ares represented war at its worst, bloodthirsty, cruel, and without reason. Ares wasn't alone on the battlefield. He was often accompanied by his sons Deimos, terror, and Phobos, fear, who personified the emotions that every soldier would face in the heat of battle. With these two by his side, Ares spread panic and dread among his enemies, ensuring that every fight was filled with chaos. Also by his side was Eris, the goddess of strife, whose name means discord. She thrived in the havoc of war, ensuring that conflict followed wherever Ares went. This sinister group made Ares not just a god of physical battle, but a master of the psychological torment that comes with war. Fear, terror, and strife were his weapons as much as any sword or spear. Despite his brutal nature, Ares had a passionate relationship with Aphrodite, the goddess of love. Their affair became one of the most famous in Greek mythology. Even though Aphrodite was married to Hephaestus, the god of fire and craftsmanship, she couldn't resist the allure of Ares. Their relationship symbolized the paradox of war and love, two primal forces that are often inseparable. However, their affair was far from romantic. In one story, Hephaestus, jealous of their relationship, crafted an unbreakable net and caught Ares and Aphrodite in the act. He invited all the gods to witness their humiliation. The gods laughed at the spectacle, but this didn't end Ares and Aphrodite's relationship. Their love affair continued, symbolizing the duality of love and war, opposing forces that often intertwine in mythology. One of the most fascinating aspects of Ares' character is his rivalry with his half-sister, Athena, the goddess of wisdom and warfare. While Ares represented the chaotic and bloody aspects of battle, Athena symbolized strategic warfare, discipline, and the pursuit of victory for just causes. She was everything Ares was not: calculated, focused, and revered. In the Iliad, their conflict comes to a head when Athena supports the Greeks and Ares backs the Trojans. In a dramatic confrontation, Athena defeats Ares, once again demonstrating that brute force alone cannot win wars. This rivalry represents two sides of the same coin. War can be either destructive or strategic, chaotic or purposeful. While Ares may not have been beloved by the Greeks, he still had his followers. Soldiers and warriors who craved power and victory offered sacrifices to Ares before battle. His most notable cult site was in the city of Sparta, a society known for its militaristic values and admiration of war. For the Spartans, Ares represented everything they stood for: strength, discipline, and unrelenting power on the battlefield. Yet, even among his worshippers, Ares was a figure more feared than loved. His temples were few compared to other gods, and offerings were made as much to appease him as to win his favor. The ancient Greeks understood the destructive nature of war and prayed that Ares' wrath would be directed at their enemies, not at them. Ares' legacy as the god of war remains a powerful reminder of the dual nature of conflict. He represents the darker, more primal side of war, the part that revels in chaos, destruction, and fear. While Athena may have been the celebrated goddess of war, Ares' role in mythology serves as a cautionary tale about the dangers of unchecked violence and aggression. Even today, Ares continues to inspire stories, films, and discussions about the nature of conflict. His presence in popular culture, from video games to movies, reminds us that the god of war still holds sway over our imaginations. So, what do you think of Ares? Was he simply a god of destruction, or do you think there's more to his character? Let me know in the comments below. Did you know that the famous Trojan horse, one of the most iconic symbols of the Trojan War, might never have existed? Despite the legend, there's virtually no archaeological evidence of this colossal wooden structure. Today, we're diving deep into the untold truths of Troy, questioning everything we thought we knew about this legendary city and its epic war. Troy is one of the most enduring legends in human history, made famous by Homer's Iliad and countless retellings in literature and film. But behind the captivating myth of heroic battles, beautiful Helen, and a wooden horse lies a far more complex story. In this video, we'll expose the real Troy, unraveling the myth, examining the evidence, and revealing truths that challenge everything we've believed about this legendary tale. So, what is the real story of Troy? Did this epic city ever truly exist? And did a war like the one described in the Iliad actually take place? These questions have puzzled historians and archaeologists for centuries. Some scholars claim that Troy is merely a fictional creation, a symbol of the ancient world's fascination with grand battles and tragic love stories. Others insist that the ruins of the city at Hisarlik in modern-day Turkey prove that Troy was a real place, devastated by conflict. But the challenge lies in separating the myth from the reality, as the lines between legend and historical fact blur with every new discovery. Why have historians disagreed so much about Troy, and what are the stakes in uncovering the truth? Let's begin by exploring the legendary account that most of us are familiar with, the Iliad, attributed to Homer. This epic poem, written hundreds of years after the supposed events of the Trojan War, tells the story of a brutal conflict between the Greeks and Trojans, sparked by the abduction of Helen, the most beautiful woman in the world. The Greek army, led by kings like Agamemnon and the hero Achilles, besieges the city of Troy for 10 long years. But how much of this is true, and how much is pure fiction? For centuries, Troy's existence was believed to be a mere fable, until a man named Heinrich Schliemann embarked on one of the most controversial archaeological digs in history. In the late 19th century, Schliemann discovered ruins at Hizarlik that he claimed were the lost city of Troy. Among his findings were treasures that he boldly declared to be the jewels of Helen herself. But Schliemann's methods were reckless. He dug through layers of history, sometimes destroying valuable evidence, all in the name of proving the story of Troy was real. Despite his questionable tactics, Schliemann's discovery reignited the debate about Troy's existence. Was Hizarlik the real Troy? Archaeologists began examining the layers of ruins at the site, which showed signs of multiple cities built on top of one another, some of which had been destroyed by war. These findings aligned with the idea that Troy had been attacked and rebuilt over the centuries. But was one of these cities the Troy of the Iliad? And did a war like the Trojan War actually occur? Another key piece of the puzzle is the rediscovery of Walusa, a city mentioned in Hittite texts that many scholars believe could be the historical Troy. These ancient records describe conflicts between the Hittites and a city that fits Troy's description, located near the Dardanelles, where Hizarlik is situated. This discovery suggests that the Trojan War, or something like it, may have been based on real historical conflicts. However, the war might not have been fought over Helen's beauty, but over control of trade routes, as Troy's location was strategically important for commerce between the Aegean and the Black Sea. And then, there's the famous Trojan horse, a symbol of cunning and deceit, which, according to legend, allowed the Greeks to sneak into Troy and destroy the city from within. However, there's no physical evidence of this massive wooden horse. Many historians now believe that the Trojan horse may have been a poetic metaphor for something else, perhaps a siege engine or an earthquake that breached the city walls. This theory casts doubt on one of the most iconic parts of the story, forcing us to reconsider what really happened. The Iliad itself, while filled with captivating tales of gods and heroes, is a mix of historical fact, myth, and artistic exaggeration. The ancient Greeks loved to weave their history with mythological elements, creating stories that reflected their culture and values. But where does the legend end and the history begin? Archaeological findings suggest that while there was a city of Troy, and it likely fell in conflict, the details of the war, as told by Homer, are heavily mythologized. The most compelling piece of evidence that challenges the traditional narrative of Troy is the archaeological discovery of Walusa and its connection to the Hittite Empire. This discovery implies that the Trojan War may not have been fought over love or revenge, as depicted in the Iliad, but rather over control of critical trade routes and regional power. The war may have been more political and economic than personal, suggesting that Troy was not just a legendary battleground, but a real city caught in the geopolitical struggles of the ancient world. This changes everything we thought we knew about the story of Troy. The grand romantic tales of Helen and Paris, Achilles' wrath, and the gods meddling in human affairs might all be embellishments added over centuries. In reality, Troy could have been a city of strategic importance, with its downfall rooted in more practical concerns, far removed from the idealized myths passed down through generations. So, what does this all mean? The story of Troy is far more complex and nuanced than the simple narrative told by Homer. While Troy was likely a real city, its legendary war may have been far different from what we've imagined. The truth behind Troy challenges the traditional myth, reminding us that history is often written and rewritten by those who tell the stories. Join me as I dive deep into the real story of Achilles and uncover surprising facts you never knew. In this video, you'll discover the untold story of Achilles, beyond the myths and legends that have shaped his identity for centuries. Achilles is often portrayed as the ultimate warrior, the demigod with superhuman strength. But what if there's more to his character and motivations than what meets the eye? His story is one of passion, rage, and tragedy, captivating us for millennia while being shrouded in mystery and exaggeration. Achilles, the mighty hero of the Trojan War, was far more than just a warrior. To truly understand him, we need to look beyond the surface. We must explore the man behind the armor, the emotions, desires, and and flaws that made him both a celebrated hero and a tragic figure. Behind the shield and spear lies a complex individual shaped by his relationships, his upbringing, and his destiny. Let's start with the idea of honor. For Achilles, honor is everything. It defines his sense of self and purpose, and his pride is tightly bound to his identity as a warrior. He's not just fighting for Greece. He's fighting for his own name, for glory that will outlast his brief life. But as we dig deeper, we find that Achilles' sense of honor is also his greatest vulnerability. His pride fuels his rage, often leading him to act impulsively. This combination of courage and impulsiveness is a hallmark of his character, making him both awe-inspiring and, at times, frightening. His rage, particularly against Agamemnon, is one of the most famous aspects of his story. Agamemnon, the Greek commander, insults Achilles by taking away his war prize, the woman Briseis. This act sparks Achilles' infamous wrath, leading to his withdrawal from battle. But there's more to this feud than just a dispute over Briseis. This event reveals Achilles' deep-seated insecurities. Despite being the greatest warrior of his time, Achilles feels disrespected and powerless when Agamemnon exerts his authority. His anger isn't just about a woman. It's about his very identity as a warrior and a leader being called into question. Let's not forget Achilles' prophetic fate. It's said that he was given a choice. He could live a long life without glory or a short life with eternal fame. Achilles chose the latter. This decision to pursue glory at the cost of his life speaks to a central tension in his character, the conflict between mortality and immortality. He knows that his time is limited, yet he seeks to make the most of it by becoming a legend. This duality is fascinating, as it drives many of his actions throughout the war. A key relationship that shaped Achilles is the one with his mother, Thetis. Thetis, a sea nymph, is aware of her son's fate and tries to shield him from it. She even dips him in the river Styx to make him invulnerable, though she misses his heel, which eventually becomes his famous weak spot. Thetis represents the emotional core of Achilles' story. She loves him, fears for him, and tries to protect him from his own fate, but ultimately, she knows she can't change what's destined. This relationship sheds light on Achilles' vulnerability. Beneath the warrior, he's also a son who carries the weight of his mother's fears and hopes. One of the most overlooked yet significant elements in Achilles' life is his deep bond with Patroclus. Patroclus isn't just a companion. He is Achilles' closest confidant, and some interpretations even suggest a romantic bond between them. Their relationship humanizes Achilles in a way that few other relationships do. Patroclus represents Achilles' connection to a world beyond battle, a world of friendship, love, and loyalty. When Patroclus dies at the hands of Hector, Achilles' grief is overwhelming. It's this loss that brings Achilles back into the war, consumed by rage and a desire for revenge. Achilles' return to battle is one of the most dramatic moments in Homer's Iliad. His fury this time is different. It's personal, driven by loss rather than pride. The image of Achilles dragging Hector's body around the walls of Troy after killing him in battle is both horrifying and tragic. In this moment, we see the full depth of Achilles' rage, but also his sorrow. He's a man who has lost his best friend, and in his grief, he lashes out in the only way he knows, through violence. But what of Achilles' final moments? He knows that after he kills Hector, his own death is near. The prophecy is clear. Achilles is destined to die shortly after Hector. And yet, Achilles embraces this fate. In a way, his acceptance of death shows a level of bravery that transcends the battlefield. He's willing to sacrifice everything for the chance to avenge Patroclus and achieve eternal glory. But it's not just about glory anymore. Achilles has come to terms with his own humanity, his grief, and his mortality. Achilles' death, shot in the heel by Paris, is one of the most iconic moments in Greek mythology. It's a reminder that even the greatest heroes have their weaknesses, that no one is invincible. Achilles' death marks the end of an era in the Trojan War, but it also leaves us with a poignant message. Even the mightiest of warriors are bound by fate and mortality. Let's take a step back and look at what Achilles' story truly represents. On the surface, it's a tale of war and heroism, but beneath that, it's a story about the human condition. Achilles embodies the struggles we all face, between pride and vulnerability, life and death, glory and loss. His story reminds us that even the greatest among us are flawed, that behind every legend is a real person with emotions, fears, and desires. In the end, Achilles isn't just a demigod or a warrior. He's a symbol of the complexities of human nature. His story has endured for thousands of years because it speaks to something universal: our desire for meaning, our fear of death, and our search for glory. Achilles' tale is not just about his battles. It's about his internal war, the struggle to find purpose in a life destined to be cut short. If you found this deep dive into Achilles' story fascinating, make sure to comment your thoughts below. Welcome to today's journey into the legend of Achilles, one of the greatest figures in Greek mythology. Was his fate truly sealed by prophecy? How did he meet his tragic end? And what role did Patroclus play in his life? Join me as we uncover the real story behind Achilles, his glory, his weakness, and the legacy that endures. Achilles, the Greek hero of the Trojan War, has fascinated people for thousands of years. His story is not just about battles and gods. It's a rich tale filled with prophecy, friendship, choices, and ultimately a tragic death. Today, we'll tackle the most important questions about his life and legacy, and by the end, you'll have a deeper understanding of who Achilles really was. Achilles was the son of Peleus, a mortal king, and Thetis, a sea nymph. This made Achilles a demigod, half mortal, half divine. His story begins even before his birth, when Thetis was told by the gods that her son was destined for either a long, quiet life or a short, glorious one. This prophecy shaped Achilles' decisions throughout his life. Thetis, knowing Achilles was vulnerable, dipped him into the river Styx, which granted him near invincibility. However, she held him by the heel, leaving that part of his body unprotected. This would later become his fatal weakness. Achilles grew to be the mightiest warrior in the Greek army during the Trojan War, where he earned eternal fame. His actions, victories, and choices would eventually lead to both his glory and his doom. Achilles' death is one of the most iconic moments in Greek mythology. According to legend, Paris, the Trojan prince, fatally wounded Achilles with an arrow. But it wasn't just any shot. It was guided by the god Apollo, who directed the arrow straight into Achilles' only vulnerable spot, his heel. This incident gave rise to the term Achilles' heel, which now symbolizes a person's greatest weakness. Patroclus was more than just a companion to Achilles. He was his closest friend, and some versions of the myth even suggest they were lovers. Patroclus played a central role in Achilles' life, both emotionally and militarily. When Achilles withdrew from the Trojan War due to a dispute with Agamemnon, it was Patroclus who wore his armor and fought in his place. However, Patroclus was killed by Hector, the Trojan prince, which triggered Achilles' deepest grief and rage. It was Patroclus' death that drove Achilles to re-enter the war and ultimately seek revenge against Hector. Achilles' refusal to fight in the Trojan War stemmed from a bitter dispute with Agamemnon, the leader of the Greek forces. After Agamemnon seized Briseis, a woman Achilles had claimed as his war prize, Achilles felt deeply dishonored. His pride and anger led him to withdraw from battle, leaving the Greeks vulnerable. This decision had far-reaching consequences, and it wasn't until the death of Patroclus that Achilles returned to the battlefield. The prophecy surrounding Achilles is central to understanding his story. According to the oracle of Apollo, Achilles had two possible fates. He could either live a long and peaceful life or he could die young and achieve eternal glory. Achilles, driven by a desire for greatness, chose the latter. Another prophecy foretold that Achilles would die soon after the death of Hector, a Trojan prince. Despite knowing his fate, Achilles pursued revenge, fully aware that his time was limited. Achilles remains one of the most iconic figures in Greek mythology. He is remembered as the greatest warrior of the Trojan War, a symbol of both strength and vulnerability. His name is synonymous with the concept of tragic heroism, a man who achieved incredible glory but could not escape his inevitable downfall. His story has transcended time, becoming a lasting symbol of heroism and the idea that even the greatest among us have weaknesses. Without a doubt, Achilles is remembered as the greatest warrior of the Trojan War. His unmatched combat skills, strength, and leadership made him a hero among the Greeks. Even the Trojans feared him, and his involvement in the war turned the tide for the Greeks. However, his greatest strength was also his greatest flaw, his inability to avoid anger, pride, and the pursuit of glory. Achilles wasn't killed by a Greek hero, but by a Trojan prince. Paris, the brother of Hector, shot the fateful arrow that struck Achilles in the heel. But it wasn't just Paris' skill that led to Achilles' downfall. The god Apollo guided the arrow to hit Achilles' only vulnerable spot. This moment symbolized the power of the gods and fate, as no mortal could kill Achilles by conventional means. Though Achilles is often depicted as a hero, he was not a full god. He was a demigod, the son of the mortal king Peleus and the sea nymph Thetis. His divine heritage granted him extraordinary abilities, but he remained mortal and was subject to both human emotions and mortality. No, Zeus was not Achilles' father. However, Achilles was a demigod because his mother, Thetis, was a sea nymph. Zeus had originally been interested in Thetis, but after a prophecy foretold that her son would be greater than his father, Zeus allowed her to marry Peleus, a mortal king. Achilles is a figure of myth and legend, and there is no historical evidence to suggest he was a real person. However, some historians believe the character of Achilles might have been inspired by actual warriors or kings of the Mycenaean era, which coincides with the supposed time of the Trojan War. In the myths, Achilles was described as having near-superhuman strength and agility. His combat prowess was unmatched, and he could defeat even the mightiest of opponents in battle. His strength was magnified by his divine ancestry, which made him one of the most feared warriors of his time. Achilles was relatively young when he died, with estimates putting him in his late 20s or early 30s. In Greek mythology, many heroes lived short but glorious lives, and Achilles was no exception. He chose a short life filled with honor and glory over a long, uneventful one. This is a debated topic in Greek mythology. While Achilles had a deep bond with Patroclus, some traditions suggest they were lovers, while others see them as close friends. Additionally, Achilles had a romantic relationship with Briseis, a Trojan woman who was taken as his war prize. Achilles' greatest weakness, both literally and figuratively, was his heel. Thetis dipped Achilles into the river Styx to make him invincible, but she held him by the heel, leaving that part vulnerable. In a broader sense, Achilles' pride and temper were also his emotional weaknesses, often driving him to make rash decisions. Achilles' story is one of glory, love, loss, and fate. He was a hero who achieved greatness, yet he could not escape the prophecy that foretold his death. His life and legacy continue to captivate us today, reminding us that even the mightiest heroes have their weaknesses.
Olympias, a name that echoes through history, filled with intrigue, power, and ruthlessness. She was a queen, a mother, and one of the most feared women of the ancient world. But what made her so dangerous, and why does her legacy continue to fascinate us today? Join me as we dive into the life of Olympias and uncover the truth behind the woman who shaped the destiny of Alexander the Great and changed the course of history forever. Born in the ancient kingdom of Epirus, Olympias was no ordinary woman. From an early age, it was clear that she was destined for greatness. She was not content with the role society expected her to play, a submissive queen at the mercy of the men around her. No, Olympias had bigger plans. She wanted power, and she knew exactly how to get it. Her ambition would propel her to become one of the most powerful figures in the ancient world, but it would also leave a trail of destruction in its wake. Today we'll explore her rise to power, her ruthless tactics, and the lengths she was willing to go to secure her legacy. Was she a devoted mother fighting for her son's future, or a cold-hearted manipulator willing to destroy anyone in her path? Olympias was born around 375 BC into the royal family of Epirus. As a child, she likely observed the world of politics and power from the sidelines, learning early on how fragile alliances could be. Her destiny changed when she was married off to King Philip II of Macedon, one of the most powerful rulers of the time. This marriage, however, was more than just a political alliance. It was Olympia's first step toward the throne. As the wife of Philip, Olympia found herself thrust into the dangerous and complex world of Macedonian politics. She quickly adapted, using her beauty, intelligence, and charm to influence those around her. But Olympia was not content to merely be a queen at Philip's side. She had her sights set on something greater, securing the future for her son Alexander. Olympia was not just a passive player in Macedon. She was a master manipulator, known for her ability to charm and influence. It's said that she was deeply involved in religious practices, even rumored to have practiced mystical rites. Her religious influence only heightened her power at court, as many believe she had a divine connection. But Olympia's true ambition lay in ensuring that her son Alexander would succeed Philip and take the throne. She knew that the road to power in a male-dominated world was fraught with danger, and she was prepared to take drastic steps to protect Alexander's future. When other heirs and rivals threatened Alexander's claim, Olympia took matters into her own hands. She orchestrated alliances, leveraged her influence, and even turned to darker means, using poison and betrayal to eliminate those who stood in her way. The court became a dangerous place, and Olympia's enemies soon learned that crossing her was a fatal mistake. The turning point in Olympia's life came with the assassination of Philip II in 336 BC. Philip's death was shrouded in mystery and intrigue. Some say that Olympia had a hand in his murder, seeking to eliminate her husband to ensure her son's rise to power. While there is no definitive proof of her involvement, her swift actions after his death suggest that she was more than prepared for this moment. After Philip's assassination, Olympia acted quickly to secure Alexander's position as the new king of Macedon. She orchestrated the removal of any threats, including Philip's other wives and children. It is said that she had one of Philip's wives and her infant child murdered to eliminate any potential rivals. Olympia's ruthlessness knew no bounds when it came to protecting her son's inheritance. As Alexander ascended to the throne, Olympia's role in his reign became undeniable. She had ensured his place as king, but her thirst for power did not end there. With Alexander now king, Olympia became the most powerful woman in Macedon. Her influence over her son was significant, and she continued to manipulate court politics to her advantage. Some historians believe that Olympia encouraged Alexander's belief in his divine origins, convincing him that he was the